If Guan performed well, he could even receive a share of precious medicinal herbs. Guan could feel that Luo Hun genuinely respected Li Suandao, which piqued his interest in the prisoner mark on Luo Hun's face. The medicine valley named Tianya Valley by Li Suandao was indeed near the Supreme Sect, yet it was thousands of miles away from Mystic Valley, nestled in a range where demon beasts roamed. Guan suggested building a teleportation array inside Tianya Valley to connect it to his Mystic Valley, but Luo Hun rejected the idea, stating that the existence of Tianya Valley must not be revealed to the Supreme Sect. This made Guan really want to scoff. You placed it near the Supreme Sect and still want to keep it a secret? However, he thought of the 8 scenic caves and supposed Li Suandao might have set up a high-rank formation. To accommodate Guan, Luo Hun flew at a leisurely pace. As night fell, they were still flying. Guan noticed the region was thick with demon energy, and even creatures on par with the elixir formation realm lurked within. As expected. Suddenly, a third-tier demon bird swooped down from behind. But Luo Hun punched out, his spiritual power coalescing into a golden spear shadow that ripped the demon bird apart and casually absorbed its demon core into his hand. After this show of force, no demons dared to obstruct their path again. It wasn't until the next morning that Guan finally caught sight of Tianya Valley. The land and mountains ahead were enveloped in white snow and fog, with a white snow vortex among the mountains where the sunlight reflected, creating a vision of circling white cranes beautiful, as if from an immortal realm. Guan's gaze penetrated the snow fog, seeing Tianya Valley, and his expression turned odd. Situated amongst mountain ranges, Tianya Valley was indeed twice the size of Mystic Valley in terms of territory. On the surrounding mountains stood stone steels, clearly part of some sort of yet-to-be-activated formation. The problem was that the valley was overrun with wild, untamed grasses. Which meant, he had to start by clearing the land. Guan couldn't help asking, is it just the two of us in Tianya Valley for now? Luo Hun looked ahead, allowing the long spear to descend. He replied, no need to worry, I will capture a few demon creatures nearby to help you. This valley must not recruit anyone casually, we must wait for His Majesty to send people. Welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 51, Zhou Tanzhu, the strongest in a century. Catching demons? Upon hearing this, Guan's interest was piqued. As they continued to descend, the terrain of Tianya Valley emerged through the snow and mist. Seen from mid-air, it appeared like a vast green ocean, with small streams flowing from the surrounding mountains into the valley. Along the edges of the valley lay 2 small rivers that, upon closer inspection, flowed into the ground. Soon, Luo Hun landed with Guan, who then took out a cloth to wrap his long spear. From now on, you are the valley master. You can do whatever you like and command me at any time, Luo Hun said. Guan nodded and took out the heavenly residence sword, saying, you can start by constructing some pavilions around the perimeter. I'll take care of the weeding. Luo Hun's eyes landed on the scabbard of the heavenly residence sword, and his pupils dilated instantly. He knelt down immediately, saying solemnly, this lowly one, Luo Hun, greets the master of the heavenly residence sword. Guan had deliberately taken out the heavenly residence sword, fearing that Luo Hun might not take him seriously enough. The effect was quite good. What are you doing? Get up, get up, Guan feigned panic and quickly helped Luo Hun to his feet. After rising, Luo Hun gave a complex look and said in a deep voice, I didn't expect His Majesty to have given you the heavenly residence sword. Guan asked in surprise, why such a big reaction? Luo Hun answered, there are 3 emperor swords in Taikang, and to see the sword is to see the emperor, heavenly inquiry, heavenly residence, and heavenly punishment. His Majesty holds the heavenly punishment sword, and the crown prince possesses the heavenly inquiry sword. Without His Majesty's permission, no one can take a sword at will, so to see the sword is like seeing the emperor. Upon hearing this, Guan suddenly felt that Li Yi held a high position in Li Suandao's heart, equal to that of the crown prince. Without Li Suandao's consent, it would be difficult for Liya to inherit the heavenly residence sword. But now that the sword was in his hands, Guan wondered if Li Suandeo had any schemes in mind. Guan was accustomed to considering the worst-case scenario, so he felt that Li Suandeo's thoughts were not so simple after all. The heart of an emperor is as unfathomable as the sea. I see. Let's get to work then, Guan replied. Luo Hun had no objections, but he couldn't help giving the heavenly residence sword a few more glances. Then, he saw Guan using the heavenly residence sword to weed, which left him speechless. After struggling for a while, Luo Hun finally turned and left. An hour later, the array steels around Tianya Valley were activated, each emitting a burst of blue light that shot into the sky. The lights converged high above to form a semicircular barrier that enveloped the entire Tianya Valley before turning transparent. After activating the formation, Luo Hun began to build the pavilions. By noon, Guan had cleared all the weeds at the bottom of the valley, working with incredible efficiency. If not for the need to hide his real strength, he could have cleared the weeds with a mere stamp of his foot. 3 days later, Guan had finished sowing, and Luo Hun had brought many seeds of high-rank medical herbs, seemingly with an endless supply from his storage bag. During these 3 days, Luo Hun had built 5 pavilions and caught 3 monkey demons. All 3 monkey demons were second-tier demon beasts, capable of walking upright. Apart from their hairy bodies, they looked no different from humans. Luo Hun asked Guan to name them, so he named them according to their cultivation levels from highest to lowest: Sun De, Sun Er, Sun San. This left Luo Hun silent for a long while. The 3 monkey demons, however, seemed quite pleased with their surnames. Guan led the 3 monkey demons around the garden area, assigning them their daily tasks. The 3 monkey demons were already capable of human speech and were quite clever, communicating with them was easy. Guan wasn't worried about them causing trouble because they were bound by curse magic by Luo Hun, who controlled their life and death. Meanwhile, Luo Hun lay on the stairs of a pavilion, taking out a book from his bosom. On it were clearly written the words Investiture of the Gods. He too was an admirer of Investiture of the Gods. Guan had discussed it with him before, and Luo Hun had been very excited, unlike his usual aloof demeanor. As evening approached, Guan found Luo Hun and informed him that he was returning to Mystic Valley. Luo Hun was worried about him encountering danger on the way, as the path was rife with demon creatures. Nevertheless, Guan insisted on going back. Guan assured him that he would be careful. Luo Hun thought for a moment, then took out 10 talisman papers from his storage bag. These contain an invisibility technique. Infuse them with spiritual power, and you can become invisible, your aura undetectable. Unless you encounter a 3rd tier or elixir formation realm existence, it would be very hard to detect you. Each talisman lasts for 5 ancient hours, so use them sparingly since you still need to return. Guan accepted the talisman papers, thanking Luo Hun with a bow of his fist. Luo Hun was still somewhat uneasy and suggested, "Why don't you perform foundation establishment first? I have foundation establishment pills here n/o/vel/b/in.c//om." Guan shook his head, "I have my own foundation establishment pills. You don't have to worry about me. I've memorized the way back, and I have plenty of spirit energy elixirs." With that, he flew away on his sword. Leaving from within Tianya Valley, he was not obstructed by the formation, but entering would be difficult. Luo Hun watched Guan's departing figure, his brow slightly furrowed. He thought of His Majesty's words and could only sigh. Li Suandeo had instructed that if Guan died, he would replace him with someone else as Valley Master. Luo Hun's only task was to guard Tianya Valley. After traveling 100 miles away from Tianya Valley, Guan suddenly sped up. Before nightfall, he returned to Mystic Valley. With Tianya Valley to manage, Guan's coming days became busy. Tending to the residences of Outer Disciples' Cave was one of his tasks, and he had to visit Tianya Valley from time to time to check on things. He didn't trust the monkeys entirely. Although constantly on the move, Guan felt energized rather than tired, his fighting spirit undiminished. In a few years, his lifespan was about to surge. Once the promised Medicine Valley from Gu Zone was in his hands, a lifespan of 1,000,000 years seemed not so out of reach. Guan even contemplated studying puppetry technique. He thought of leaving a puppet in each Medicine Valley to help guard the condition of the medical herbs. Before that, however, he had to enhance his apparent cultivation level. The cultivation level of the 9th layer in the energy cultivation realm was not enough, at least going back and forth between Mystic Valley and Tianya Valley would be quite troublesome. And so, after 15 days passed, Guan came to the outer sect, and he went to visit Elder Lu at the book collection hall. He felt Elder Lu had more authority than Zhu Qingla from the elixir hall. The two met alone in the inner room, where Elder Lu was perusing the latest volume of Investiture of the Gods, saying with a smile, "Not bad, not bad, it's very thrilling, I can't help but itch to read more just by flipping through it." Guan hesitated and then said, "Elder Lu, I have a favor to ask." Elder Lu, without looking up, asked, "What is it?" "I'm preparing for my foundation establishment, but I don't want to become an outer disciple, I want to continue as the Valley Master of Mystic Valley, it's also more convenient for writing. If I become an outer disciple and have to carry out missions, I'm afraid I'll die out there." "Is that all? Can Elder Lu arrange it?" "Of course, I'll go directly to Guyu. He once told me his father holds you in high regard and asked me to look after you and try to meet your requests as much as possible." Elder Lu said with a laugh, his expression as cunning as a fox's. Guan immediately expressed his gratitude. Putting down the book in his hand, Elder Lu said, "You're already considered a special talent of the Supreme Sect. The proceeds you turn in annually already rank among the top 3 in the Medicine Valley, not to mention, you can also write Investiture of the Gods. Because of your book, the number of disciples the Supreme Sect recruits each year has increased by 50%. Your contribution has already far exceeded the contributions of outer disciples carrying out missions. You just relax, even if you are able to reach the core formation stage in the future, we won't send you out on missions." Laughing at his own remarks, Elder Lu was amused by the irony. He himself had not been able to reach the core formation stage, how could Guan? Guan felt a burden lifted, this would make things much easier. He just had to avoid appearing too talented and could gradually improve his apparent cultivation level, this would also be convenient for his future actions. Suddenly, Elder Lu seemed to recall something and said, "Lately, the genius Zhou Tongzhu of Jushan sect plans to come to the Supreme Sect to challenge young cultivators below 100 years old. It's expected to be a lively event. You can gather more information to inspire your next book. Remember, when the time comes, make sure to include the Supreme Sect in the story." Investiture of the Gods was nearing completion, and Elder Lu had already received instructions from above. Guan nodded and curiously asked, "Is that Zhou Tongzhu very impressive?" "Naturally, he is impressive. He was born with dual spirit roots, and his physique, the evil-suppressing golden body, was cultivated by the Zhou family's efforts over thousands of years. He has been unbeaten within the same realm, and once, with the cultivation level of the 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm, he slew a cultivator in the 3rd layer of the Elixir Formation realm. His fame shook the Immortal cultivation world, and he has been called the strongest genius in the Taekeng Immortal cultivation world in 100 years, Elder Lu said with admiration as he recounted that battle, and Guan listened earnestly. Geniuses who can defeat enemies beyond their own realm, in Guan's eyes, all had the aura of a main character. After all, he couldn't do that, or rather, he didn't dare to do so. Compared to defeating strong enemies beyond his own realm, he preferred to suppress weaker ones with a stronger cultivation level. Half an hour later, Guan left the book collection hall. After purchasing a batch of items in the city, he hurried back to Mystic Valley. The next morning, Guan gathered his disciples for training exercises and announced that he had successfully established his foundation the previous night, which surprised the disciples. Wuxin felt both excited and a bit reluctant. With their master's success in foundation establishment, he would surely move to the outer sect, and Wuxin would become the valley master. Master, does that mean you're going to leave us? Zhen Qin hurriedly asked, her tone sounding reluctant, with a pitiable expression on her face. The other disciples also looked nervously at Guan, as Wuxin reined in his excitement and pretended to look downcast. Guan sighed and said, yes. The disciples' expressions instantly dimmed, and Wuxin's heart pounded uncontrollably. The most saddened was Xiao Chuan, as he was going to become the one with the oldest seniority in the valley. However, because our Medicine Valley's harvest has been good, I applied to the outer sect to stay in Medicine Valley, and the outer sect has agreed, said Guan, swiftly transitioning. The disciples were stunned for a moment and then burst into cheers, crowding around Guan. Wuxin froze, standing motionless for several breaths before he managed to squeeze out a smile. The happiest was Xiao Chuan, knowing he had no hope of foundation establishment in this life. If Guan could accompany him for a lifetime, of course, he would be overjoyed, as only Guan would indulge his interest in raising demon creatures. Mystic Valley burst into joy, and it took Wuxin a good while to settle his emotions. Seeing his mood, Guan pulled him aside and revealed that he would soon have a new Medicine Valley and that even if he remained in Mystic Valley, Wuxin could be in charge of it in the future. Wuxin would have the de facto authority of the Valley Master. This news excited Wuxin greatly. Seeing his enthusiastic smile, Guan thought of Cheng Suandan and Zhang Chunkaiu again. Things had changed. Days quickly passed by, and Guan went out of the valley every 2 days to manage the outer disciples' caves and visited Tianya Valley once every half a month. Once he knew that Guan had established his foundation, Luo Hun became completely reassured about him and stopped bothering him. Seeing Luo Hun's fondness for reading, Guan brought him a copy of Green Hero Travelogue. However, oddly enough, when Guan visited Tianya Valley afterward, he never saw Luo Hun holding Green Hero Travelogue. Maybe he didn't like it. Then he wouldn't bring it next time. But why wasn't he reading Investiture of the Gods anymore? Chapter 52, Chapter 52, Internal Strife, Third Medicine Valley. Winter had passed, and spring was upon them once more, signifying the arrival of another new year. In Mystic Valley, the disciples were bustling about with preparations for the spring festival, while Guan walked around with the white spirit rat cradled in his arms, inspecting each garden area. The white spirit rat thoroughly enjoyed being held by him, its eyes closed, seemingly asleep. A whooshing sound broke through the air from afar, and Guan turned his head to see, a smile spreading across his face. Yelan had returned. She swiftly landed beside Guan, retracting her flying sword into her storage bag, and said with a beaming smile, "Senior brother, I'm back for the festival. You wouldn't be unwelcoming, would you?" Guan looked at her and asked with a smile, "Is the law enforcement hall not busy?" "No matter how busy it is, I can always find a few days to relax. A proper rest is conducive to cultivation, that's what you've always taught me, and I've kept it in mind." Yelan blinked and said in a playful tone. After chatting for a while, Yelan pulled Guan toward the loft, saying as they walked, "Senior brother, let's go to your room first. I have something to show you." "A treasure?" Guan set the white spirit rat down on the ground and followed Yelan. As they made their way to the loft and entered the room, Yelan didn't close the door, which relieved Guan somewhat. Yelan walked over to the desk and pulled a brocade box from her storage bag, looking sideways at Guan with a victorious smile. "Senior brother, this is a foundation establishment congratulatory gift I prepared especially for you. There's no need for this. When you established your foundation, I didn't give you any gifts. Without senior brother's foundation establishment pill, could I have established my foundation? I'm definitely not one of those geniuses who can forcibly establish their foundation with their own spirit root qualification," Yelan said, shaking her head and smiling. Hearing this, Guan no longer demurred. He moved next to her, curiously looking at the brocade box. Yelan opened the box, revealing a plant root inside that resembled ginseng. If one did not pay close attention, they would hardly notice the faint fluctuations of spiritual energy within. Human-faced tree, reviving state 0/600/22,000. 22,000 years of maximum lifespan? Guan raised an eyebrow. It was the first time he had seen the words reviving state. Yelan explained, this is the root of a 6th grade spirit tree. Just plant it in the ground for a few years, and it will grow again, enhancing the spiritual energy of the area. Guan asked curiously, such a precious treasure, where did you get it from? Yelan blinked and replied, not long ago, when I captured a spy from the demon path, I found it in the cave of a spy from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion. I didn't report it. Isn't that bad? Don't worry, other disciples from the Law Enforcement Hall also keep some things, and the higher UPS have tacitly approved it. It's fine as long as we don't get too greedy, and no one knows about this treasure. Upon hearing this, Guan felt less burdened. After thinking it over, he said, if you need any herbs in the future, just let me know. I will soon have a second Medicine Valley, and we can help each other out. Yelan smiled, all right, I'll go find the others now. I've brought gifts for them too. Guan nodded, and Yelan then took her leave. He gazed at the brocade box on the desk, considering where to plant it. After much thought, he decided to save it for the third Medicine Valley. The new valley needed a boost in spiritual energy. The more abundant the energy, the faster the herbs would grow. Mystic Valley already had its own rhythm and didn't need a spirit tree, not to mention Tianya Valley. Why should he plant the seed himself? Tianya Valley was Li Suandeo's Medicine Valley. He only had managerial rights. Should he need anything from Tianya Valley, he could simply ask Li Suandeo for it. Some time later, Guan put the brocade box into his storage bag and then sat at the desk, picking up a brush and beginning to write on a piece of paper. The arrival of Yelan made the atmosphere in Mystic Valley even better. As night fell, various activities for the spring festival began, the liveliness never ceasing. Once everyone was seated and started drinking, Zhen Qin asked Yelan to share her experiences of executing tasks as an outer disciple, and she agreed without refusal. Besides protecting the outer sect, disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall also had to venture out for training experiences, and Yelan was no exception. The mission we took on at the time was to eradicate evil. We were sent to a mountain town where nearly 1,000 households had died off in just a few short days. To prevent evil entities from further harming the civilians, the local authorities requested help from the Supreme Sect. There were 7 of us. Yelan vividly recounted the experience, and since it was nighttime, the listeners, especially the disciples, were wholly engrossed and anxious, with the female disciples huddling together. Watching the young girl who used to follow him around grow into someone who could stand on her own, Guan's smile never once faded. When Yelan got to the part about the ghosts, all the disciples' hearts rose to their throats. Even Xiao Chuan, Wuxin, and Su Han were particularly on edge. It wasn't until late into the night that the disciples dispersed. Yelan followed Guan back to the loft, where he took out a martial arts manual he had written and handed it to her, saying, "This is a leg technique manual I found in the inner sect a while ago. Practice it when you have some free time." Gale's shadowless leg. Yelan took the manual, not opening it right away but instead placing it into her storage bag. Looking at Guan, she said, "Senior brother, you'd better be careful around Liu Jijia in the future." "What's wrong with him?" Guan asked, puzzled. Yelan sighed and said, "Remember how we talked about the infighting within the Supreme Sect? The elders who oppose the sect leader are secretly recruiting disciples. Liu Jijia has taken an elder of the Outer Elder Hall as his mentor, and that elder is serving the sect leader's adversary. If things continue like this, the Supreme Sect will inevitably erupt into chaos. If the sect leader gets the last laugh, he will certainly clean out the disruptive disciples." Lujia won't be able to escape. I tried to warn him before, but he didn't listen. He says that the path of immortal cultivation requires struggle and that it's better to take a risk than to lead a mediocre life. His choice is not wrong, I'm just worried that if you get too close to him, you'll be implicated later. He probably thinks the same, which is why he hasn't returned to Mystic Valley. Hearing this, Guan fell into silence. He couldn't interfere with Lujia's choices because what Lujia had said was true. The path of immortal cultivation demands contention. He didn't vie for power because he could snatch lifespans, and thus, he had no right to instruct others on how to cultivate immortality. N/O/vel/b//jn.c//om. Yelan started talking about other matters, revolving around the outer sect. Surprisingly, the internal struggles of the Supreme Sect even involved the Ji family and the royal descendants. Guan listened with keen interest. It was only by dawn that Guan finally saw Yelan off. Despite talking throughout the night, both of them were still full of vigor. Before she left, Guan reminded her not to forget to practice the Gale Shadowless Leg, to which Yelan nodded, her eyes carrying a trace of silent resentment. After her departure, Guan called his disciples to practice drills. On a blistering summer day, the 35-year-old Guan stood by the window, gazing at the sky with a slight frown on his face. He was waiting for Guyu. The half-year deadline had passed, why hadn't he come yet? Guan was looking forward to his third Medicine Valley every day, his seeds already prepared and awaiting sowing. Could something have gone wrong? Guan's concern grew. Last month, when he visited the outer sect, he distinctly felt an unusual atmosphere. A new group of disciples in black had appeared in the city, said to be from a division established by the new Great Elder of the outer sect called the Demon Extermination Hall. The Demon Extermination Hall was directly under the control of the Great Elder, and even the lowest cultivation level among its disciples was the fifth layer of the Foundation establishment realm. Their treatment was even above that of other divisions. The Supreme Sect had 8 outer cities. If the outer sect was like this, let alone the inner sect and the main city of the sect, such strife would surely spread to the Gu zone. Sigh. So annoying. It's affecting my gardening. All of a sudden, Guan felt like throwing a punch to burst those troublemakers. Just then, he sensed something and his gloomy face immediately bloomed into a smile. He's here. He's here at last. Guan caught Guyu's aura. Struggling to compose himself, he didn't go downstairs. After a while, Guyu finally landed within Mystic Valley. Guan! Guyu called out loudly, drawing the attention of all the disciples in the valley. Guan pushed open the door, looked at Guyu, and said, "Brother Gu, come up and we'll talk." Guyu threw the compass into his storage bag and then climbed the stairs. After entering the room, Guan closed the door and poured him tea. Guyu, however, didn't sit down. Instead, he started browsing the bookshelf as if searching for something. "I haven't written the final volume of Investiture of the Gods yet," Guan spoke up. Upon hearing this, Guyu showed his disappointment. He turned around to the table, took out a series of books from his storage bag, and finally, he produced a token. "This is your Valley Master token. Your Medicine Valley is situated between the outer sect and the inner sect, less than 100 miles from the outer city. For you, at the Foundation establishment realm, going back and forth would not be much trouble. These books are the life experiences penned by my father. You can refer to them. My father said you're not obligated to stick to the exact facts, so feel free to make changes, or even draw from his experiences to conjure up a fictional tale," Guyu explained, his expression gleeful, as he hinted suggestively with his eyes to Guan. Guan put down the teacup in front of him, took the Valley Master token, and observed it. Unlike the bronze token of Mystic Valley, this one was silver-white, with several layers of restrictions sealed within. "Later, I'll take you to the Medicine Valley. If you get lost afterward, project your divine sense into the token and it will guide you," Guyu said after sipping his tea, then continued. Guan nodded, he couldn't wait to see his new medicine valley. Gu Yu seemed to recall something and said, "By the way, when you write about me, include Zhou Tongzhu. Write him as the strongest young genius in the immortal cultivation world who greatly admires me, obedient only to my leadership." Gu An's face twitched, "That doesn't sound like a good idea, I'm afraid it could cause me trouble." "Whatever you want, just name it, I can fulfill it. It's not about the price. 100 top-grade spirit stones. If he sees it, he will surely investigate me. 1,000 top-grade spirit stones, that's all my possessions. What about a pun, would that work?" At this, Gu Yu raised his eyebrows. "Fine, but you can only change one character." "Agreed." Guan promised, though he had no intention of defaming Zhou Tongzhu in the book. He considered making these two into brothers who both loved and competed with each other, thus offending neither. He could tell that Gu Yu bore no animosity towards Zhou Tongzhu, otherwise, he wouldn't just make Zhou Tongzhu his underling but would slander him in the book. Gu Yu was likely just envious of Zhou Tongzhu. If Guan could turn Zhou Tongzhu into his brother and add some emotionally charged plot points, Gu Yu would probably be satisfied. After resting for an hour, the two set off immediately, flying out of Mystic Valley on swords. Chapter 53, Chapter 53 The so-called understanding, Gu An's fury. At dusk, the setting sun sank in the west. Guan stood on the cliff, overlooking the Medicine Valley ahead, his face showing a look of satisfaction. Before him lay a series of not too tall mountains, and between them, a spacious valley that stretched for tens of miles in length and around 2 to 3 miles in width. The periphery of Medicine Valley was lined with rows of trees, serving as a natural barrier against the wind and waves. Gu Yu stood beside him and said, "There are cave mansions of inner sect disciples nearby, and not just one. As long as you don't stray further than 100 miles, you won't encounter any demon beasts." Guan nodded, his eyes brimming with anticipation. What he saw was not just the Medicine Valley, but a continuous flow of lifespan numbers. Gu Yu gave Guan's shoulder a pat before flying away on his sword while Guan leapt forward, jumping toward Medicine Valley, his limbs swirling with visible wind currents, a manifestation of the wind control skill. Gu Yu looked back while riding on his flying sword, his eyebrows slightly raised, a hint of surprise in his eyes, but he did not turn back. After landing, Guan first went to the entrance of the valley where a stone stele stood, bare, with no inscriptions. He used his finger as a sword to carve 4 characters with sword chi. Third Medicine Valley. The name was kept simple because he planned to have many more Medicine Valleys in the future. Looking at his own handwriting, Guan was very satisfied, his calligraphy reflecting the sharpness resulting from the meticulous practice he put in for writing his books. After admiring his writing for a while, Guan began to look for a place to build a loft. He decided to first construct the teleportation array. Eventually, twilight came to an end, and night gradually fell. By the campfire, Guan sat on a rock, flipping through a book in his hand. This was given to him by Ji Xiaoyu, and it recorded how to construct the teleportation array she had provided. One must admit, the development of immortal cultivation in this world was indeed strong. Looking at the book felt like reading a manual, albeit a simplified version, as the teleportation array Ji Xiaoyu had given to him already had restrictions in place. He simply needed to follow the sequence in the book to construct it. Guan prepared to stay up all night to build the transmission array platform, and once it was ready, he would bring several disciples over to sow seeds. Activating the teleportation array required spirit stones. At the moment, he was quite wealthy, not to mention the spirit stone earnings from investiture of the gods. Gu Yu had just given him 1,000 top-grade spirit stones, enough for him to squander for a long while. When night passed, Guan had successfully constructed the transmission array platform and immediately flew away on his sword. After returning to Mystic Valley, he built a transmission array platform next to his loft. His activities drew all the disciples to come and watch. Xiao Chuan asked what he was doing, and he did not hide it. Hearing that Guan was about to take over another medicine valley and construct a teleportation array, the disciples became interested and peppered him with questions. As Guan worked on the array platform, he answered their questions. By noon, the construction was complete, and under everyone's watchful gaze, Guan placed spirit stones into the grooves on the array pillars. Once the stones were in place, he channeled spiritual power into the activation mechanism. Boom! The teleportation array roared to life, the ground trembling slightly. From atop the array platform, 2 pillars emanated a bright light, converging to form a barrier of light. Guan turned and surveyed the crowd, commanding, "Wuxin, go to the outer sect and recruit 3 servant disciples. Suhan, Zhenqin, and Yayan, come with me, the rest of you will stay and guard Mystic Valley." Upon hearing this, Zhenqin and the other 2 excitedly stepped forward and followed Guan into the teleportation array. Before long, the teleportation light screen dissipated, and the array platform returned to calm. On the other side, within Third Medicine Valley, Guan started instructing the 3 disciples to weed, while he took care of building houses. Suhan used a sword, Yayan used a spear, and Zhenqin employed leg techniques to weed. Ever since Luo Hun taught Yayan a set of spear techniques, he couldn't help but beg Guan for an iron spear, which Guan procured from the outer sect. It was no ordinary iron spear as it could contain spiritual power, and could be considered the lowest grade magic artifact. Guan wasn't interested in spear techniques, so he didn't bother to watch Yayan's practice. Ever since practicing with the spear, Yayan's strength had been improving day by day. Guan witnessed for the first time a real genius within Mystic Valley. Yayan's cultivation level still rose slowly, but his actual combat strength surged rapidly. After only 6 months of practicing with the spear, even Tang Yu and Suhan combined were no match for him, which dealt quite a blow to the pair. Guan also reflected on his own comprehension, which was the only thing that one could not directly enhance with lifespan. In this world, it seemed that spirit root qualification could not decide everything. Guan called for Suhan, Zhenqin, and Yayan, partly because he wanted to guide them. In the calamity brought by Chu Qunli, their performance had earned his favor, and he decided to cultivate them well, to help them go further. Located between the inner and outer sects, Third Medicine Valley had richer spiritual energy that could help them in their cultivation. Occasionally, Guan would also give them extra lessons. All 3 had the character to endure hardship. Before completing their weeding task, none of them took a break, even secretly competing to see who could work faster. Once they had cleared the weeds, Guan had finished building 4 lofts. The 4 gathered in front of the lofts to rest. Suhan looked at Yayan with a trace of defiance in his eyes. Yayan, on the other hand, was much calmer, having become more restrained since practicing with the spear. As Zhenqin wiped off sweat, he asked Guan, "Master, is just the 3 of us enough for such a large area?" "Of course it's enough. In the past, I took care of Mystic Valley all by myself while your martial uncle Meng Lang and martial uncle Li slacked off every day," Guan said with a quiet laugh. Looking back at those past petty squabbles, it all seemed amusing now, a pity that the old friends were no longer there. Upon hearing this, Zhenqin prodded Guan for more stories about his past. Suhan and Yayan also listened carefully, they had great respect for Guan. Even though Yayan did not learn his spear technique from Guan, he still felt indebted to his master. Without Guan, would the mysterious cultivator ever have visited Mystic Valley, let alone bestow upon him a spear technique? After chatting for half an hour, they all got back to work. 3 days later, Third Medicine Valley was fully sown with medicinal herb seeds, but it still looked like a barren land, since seeds take time to germinate and grow. Guan led them back to Mystic Valley to pack up their things, then had them move to live in Third Medicine Valley. Curious about this, the remaining servant disciples also wanted to go to the Third Medicine Valley, but Wuxin suppressed their curiosity. As the Valley Master of Mystic Valley, Wuxin couldn't allow anyone to leave. Mystic Valley was his foundation. And so, Guan's trifecta of medicine valleys began operating, and the idyllic farming life unfolded. An ancient hour had passed since the third medicine valley was sown, and while Zhen Qin and the other two guarded the valley, Guan only came by occasionally. They only needed to take a little time each day to check on each of the areas, spending the rest of their time on cultivation. As evening approached, the sky turned a reddish hue. Zhen Qin walked out from her house, stretched lazily, and looked full of energy. The cultivation technique taught by Zhang Qiang allowed her cultivation level to increase rapidly, far surpassing her past, thus her zeal for cultivation reached its peak. She turned her head and saw Yan still practicing his spear technique on the hillside by the entrance of the valley. Not absorbing energy, can practicing the spear alone be useful? Zhen Qin murmured to herself. She didn't go over to join the excitement but took the opportunity to rest and check on each of the plots. Nov. L. B //JNN. This was all her master's painstaking effort, after all. Elsewhere, Yan was practicing his spear in the glow of the setting sun, his sweat pouring down like raindrops. Despite the soreness in his body, he didn't stop. The spear technique he practiced was his only opportunity. He didn't want to miss it, nor did he want to remain a servant disciple for life. Even though the spiritual energy is richer inside, why don't you practice your spear in the valley? A voice came, startling Yan, who turned to look. Standing in the air above the woods 10 zhang away, a figure stood with a foot on the treetop, his blue garment fluttering in the wind, displaying an immortal's demeanor. When did they appear? Yan was secretly alarmed. He put away his spear and turned, asking loudly, "Senior, may I know your business here?" Guan had said that this was now the territory of the inner sect, hence any cultivator they encountered must be respectfully addressed as senior to avoid any discourtesy. The man in blue had an ordinary face, but his bright eyes were so compelling that one could hardly meet his gaze. "I was just passing by and saw you practicing the spear. Your spear technique is no ordinary one. It incorporates the method of absorbing energy to temper the body, which is quite rare." Zhou Tongzhou leaped down from the tree and walked towards Yan. Seeing him approach, Yan was very nervous. How should he deal with him in the absence of his master? "You haven't answered my question yet," Zhou Tongzhou reminded him. His tone was calm, but the calmer he was, the more pressure Yan felt. Yan, bracing himself, replied, "Behind me is my master's medicine valley. It's only been sown for an ancient hour. I don't want to affect the growth of those herbs because of my cultivation." "Is this spear technique taught by your master?" "No, it's from a friend of my master." "To have such a friend, your master must also be extraordinary. May I ask for your master's name?" "My master is named Guan." While answering, Yan was perplexed, not understanding what the other party's intentions were. Zhou Tongzhou stopped walking and raised his hand, proposing, "How about a little sparring? I won't use spiritual power or magic artifacts, just techniques. What do you say?" Yan frowned, quite hesitant. "Are you scared?" Zhou Tongzhou's words ignited Yan's fighting spirit. He had faced even the great cultivators of the demon path without fear, why would he be afraid of the man before him? At noon, Guan used the teleportation array to arrive at the third medicine valley. He first used his divine sense to survey all the plots and, finding no problems, then turned his attention to his disciples. Soon, he was drawn to Yan, who was practicing his spear at the entrance of the valley. As he approached, Yan noticed and slightly turned, showing his back to him. "Yaner, how did you get injured?" Guan approached and asked. After a moment of hesitation, Yan chose to face Guan and was seen with a bruised face and even a palm print on his left cheek. He told Guan about what had happened the previous evening. Upon hearing this, Guan immediately became furious. Someone had dared to bully his disciple. "What's his name? Will he come again?" "I don't know, he didn't say." He just said that he'd come to find me again when he's less busy. Don't worry, your master will support you. Guan patted Yayan's shoulder and gave him some healing pills to take. For the next few days, Guan stayed in the Third Medicine Valley, yet the assailant who had beaten Yayan did not show up. However, after Guan left to take care of his cave in the outer sect, he returned to find that Yayan had been beaten again. The assailant hit him and then left. Time and again, over the next 2 months, Yayan was beaten 4 times, each time Guan wasn't present. Guan began to suspect that the assailant was deliberately avoiding him. That day at noon, Guan was reading under a tree. Below was a slope that led to the entrance of the valley, giving him a clear view of Yayan practicing the spear. Suddenly, Guan sensed something, his eyebrows raised slightly as he thought, finally, they have come. Chapter 54, Chapter 54, Your sword is so fast. Under Guan's watchful eye, a figure flew swiftly and landed in front of Yayan. Seeing him, Yayan immediately tensed up and even took 2 steps back. Zhou Tongzhu, Elixir Formation Realm, 9 layers 62/900/3100. It was actually him. Guan hadn't expected to encounter Zhou Tongzhu, whose name had recently shaken the Supreme Sect. Zhou Tongzhu challenged younger disciples everywhere he went, undefeated in battle, his fame even reaching the outer sect. Since Zhou Tongzhu's Jushan sect was also a respected righteous sect, which maintained good relations with the Supreme Sect, the great cultivators of Supreme Sect couldn't target him. Thus, Zhou Tongzhu had been wantonly challenging for over half a year now, without anyone to punish him. Zhou Tongzhu only engaged in combat, never killing, and he proclaimed that he would only challenge those under the age of 100. Many cultivators of the Supreme Sect could only watch, seething in silent anger. The entire Supreme Sect was under the pressure of Zhou Tongzhu's presence, with no one daring to question his rules. Even though his opponents were under 100 years old, he was still 38 years away from that age himself. He challenged disciples of the Supreme Sect who were 99 years old, which in actuality gave the Supreme Sect an advantage. Yet even so, no one had been able to defeat him. Zhou Tongzhu's gaze glanced at Guan on the nearby hillside, his expression calm. Guan put his book away and then stood up and walked down. He made his way between Zhou Tongzhu and Yayan, turned to face Zhou Tongzhu, and clasped his fists, saying, "I am Guan, Yayan's master. May I know where my disciple has offended the senior?" Yayan, watching Guan standing in front of him, felt deeply moved. Guan had said before that all the cultivators here were inner sect disciples, which meant they had reached the elixir formation realm. How could Yayan not be moved when Guan, only at the foundation establishment realm, dared to confront a cultivator of the elixir formation realm for his sake? "You're his master? Your cultivation level is disappointing," Zhou Tongzhu said, scrutinizing Guan with a frown. Guan replied, "My disciple is only at the Qi cultivation realm. As his master, how high can my cultivation level be?" Zhou Tongzhu huffed, "I'm not bullying your disciple, I'm acknowledging his worth." Upon hearing this, Yayan's face instantly turned green, and he found himself at a loss for words. Guan stared at him, saying, "If you wanted to give him pointers, you could have been straightforward. My disciple would have been grateful for your favor. But you didn't articulate that and struck quite heavily. Perhaps you really had an intention to instruct, but in your heart, you must have disdained him, which is why you couldn't be bothered to explain." If Zhou Tongzhu were the top genius of the Supreme Sect, Guan might have reconsidered, but he was not. Without reason, Guan didn't want to provoke Zhou Tongzhu. However, if Zhou Tongzhu bullied him, Guan wouldn't be lenient or merciful. Zhou Tongzhu, hearing Guan's words, furrowed his brows even more deeply. He wanted to retort, but he understood that Guan had not misjudged him, he did indeed hold some contempt for Yayan. His frequent offers of instruction were just whims. "Humph, it seems you are coming to accuse me. Very well, the rule remains the same, no use of spiritual power, relying only on techniques. If you win against me, I will apologize to your disciple and gift him a complete book on body refining sorcery. How about that? Zhou Tongzhu stared at Guan, his voice cold. Master, forget it. Yan hurriedly interjected, well aware of Zhou Tongzhu's strength. Even if it were a contest of techniques alone, it was unfathomably deep. Guan asked, only a comparison of techniques. That's right. Seeing Guan's interested reaction, Zhou Tongzhu revealed a smile, though it was somewhat ferocious. Guan frowned and said, if you lose, you cannot speak of your defeat to me, nor can you bother us master and disciple anymore. He actually wants to compare techniques with me. Zhou Tongzhu laughed, all according to your wishes. Quickly, take up a weapon. Guan raised his right hand, and with a motion through the air, he drew a branch from the forest to himself, grasped it in his hand as if it were a sword, and gestured to Zhou Tongzhu with his left hand. Zhou Tongzhu immediately walked towards Guan, the distance between them narrowing. Yan quickly moved out of the way, wary of hindering his master. When they were less than 7 steps apart, Zhou Tongzhu suddenly accelerated, stepping right up to Guan, and aimed a punch with his right fist towards Guan's abdomen. Even without using spiritual power, the punch, as it was thrown, seemed to roar like tigers and leopards. Zhou Tongzhu's fist hadn't even made contact with Guan when Guan already felt an overwhelming fierce energy bearing down on him. Who? Zhou Tongzhu's fist stopped, his pupils shaking violently, his expression astonished. Yan's eyes widened in disbelief at the scene before him. Guan's body leaned slightly backward, the branch in his hand pointed at Zhou Tongzhu's throat, while Zhou Tongzhu's punch was still 2 feet away from Guan. If what I had in my hand was a sword, I wonder if I could have wounded you? Guan asked calmly, watching Zhou Tongzhu's face change colors. After a few moments, Zhou Tongzhu retracted his fist, and Guan withdrew his sword in kind. Zhou Tongzhu took a deep breath, looked at Yan, and said, my apologies, I went too far. He took out a book from his storage bag and tossed it to Yan, then his gaze turned back to Guan. Your swordsmanship is very fast. Who exactly are you? Guan threw the branch back into the forest, saying calmly, I'm just a cultivator with mediocre spirit root qualification who doesn't like energy absorption. I simply enjoy practicing the sword. My sword techniques aren't exquisite, but they are fast enough. Had we not set rules, I certainly wouldn't have been a match for you. If Zhou Tongzhu had refused to honor the outcome, Guan would have made him regret it. Now that he kept his word, willing to apologize to a servant disciple, Guan's impression of him changed. This person may be proud, but he's not a bad sort. Upon hearing this, Zhou Tongzhu's face shifted between shades, and he clenched his teeth, asking, you really won't talk about today's incident? I don't even know your name, so how could I speak of it? Guan countered. Zhou Tongzhu heaved a sigh of relief, bowed with folded fists to Guan, and then turned and left, moving even faster than when he arrived. Yan came over, exclaiming excitedly, Master, I didn't expect your sword to be so fast, defeating him with just one move. Guan glanced towards the valley. Inside, Zhen Qin was absorbed in energy absorption, while Su Han was practicing the sword in a forest miles away. Neither had noticed the recent sparring match. Don't let this matter out, treat it as a secret between just the two of us, master and disciple. Don't even mention it to your fellow senior brothers and sisters, Guan instructed Yan. Yan nodded excitedly, feeling an even closer bond with his master. Teaching Zhou Tongzhu a lesson was just a minor interlude for Guan, after which he could leave Third Medicine Valley without having to stay on guard. However, 1 month later, when Guan returned to Third Medicine Valley, he saw Zhou Tongzhu's figure at the entrance of the valley. Yan was practicing with his spear while Zhou Tongzhu stood by watching. Zhou Tongzhu, sensing Guan's gaze, immediately beamed and waved at him enthusiastically. A hint of displeasure flashed in Guan's eyes as he walked over n/o/vel/b/jn.c//om. Upon reaching the entrance of the valley, Guan asked with a frown, "Why are you here again? Is this guy planning to stick around the Supreme Sect?" Zhou Tongzhi said excitedly, "I figured out how to break through your sword technique, come on, let's have another match. Didn't we agree you wouldn't bother me anymore? Going back on your word. It's not bothering you. Look, ask for anything you want, I just want to try out your sword moves," Zhou Tongzhi hurried to explain. Yan, who was unharmed, spoke up, "Master, he has been waiting here for 4 days." Guan frowned, hesitating. Zhou Tongzhi, thinking of something, pulled out a small cloth bag from his storage bag and said, "In here are seeds of 4th-grade medicinal herbs, all for you. Just spar with me, I'm not doing it to win, I want to learn from you." Guan took the cloth bag, weighed it with his hand, and sighed, "Only this one time. There will be no next time." Zhou Tongzhi said excitedly, thinking to himself that this time he would definitely make Guan admit defeat convincingly. He took a sword out of his storage bag and tossed it to Guan, saying, "This is a mid-grade flying sword, very suitable for cultivators in the Foundation establishment realm. It's for you, take this sword and fight me." With that, he himself pulled out a long spear. What a move! A longer reach means a stronger punch? Guan, holding the flying sword, didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Zhou Tongzhi, facing his gaze, felt somewhat awkward and quickly explained, "Same rules as before, no using spiritual power, only techniques. Come on then." This time, Zhen Qin and Su Han heard the commotion and ran over quickly, but before they could reach the entrance of the valley, Guan made the first move. He threw the flying sword in his hand, attacking Zhou Tongzhi. Zhou Tongzhi's pupils suddenly dilated, thinking to himself how fast. No, this fellow's physical strength is tremendous. Zhou Tongzhi sidestepped and thrust forward with his spear because he saw Guan following closely behind the flying sword. In the blink of an eye, Guan tilted his head, grabbed the spear shaft with his left hand, pulled it back, and with his right hand used 2 fingers as a sword, pointing at Zhou Tongzhi. Everything happened too fast, so fast that even Yan couldn't keep up with his eyes. When the two stopped, Guan's fingers were already at Zhou Tongzhi's throat. Zhou Tongzhi still held the long spear in his hands, but his body had stiffened. "How can you be so fast? Are you really only at the first layer of Foundation establishment realm?" Zhou Tongzhi asked through gritted teeth, cold sweat forming on his forehead. Guan replied, "If we used spiritual power, you would be faster than me, it's your rules that gave me the advantage. I'm not your match at all, why do you insist on using such rules to defeat me? We ordinary cultivators have our own dignity, too." He released his hands, and Zhou Tongzhi's face turned bright red, his teeth clenched as he said, "I didn't mean to trample on your dignity. Farewell." He left as if fleeing. By this time, Zhen Qin and Su Han had arrived. Guan ignored them, picked up the flying sword, and walked towards the valley. In the eyes of the 3 disciples, his silhouette completely embodied the demeanor of a master. Another month later, Zhou Tongzhi came again, bringing even more seeds of medicinal herbs. Guan could only reluctantly accept them. This time, Guan defeated him in 3 moves, leaving him feeling dejected but also glimpsing a sliver of hope. Zhou Tongzhi's generosity made Guan somewhat reluctant to send him away. Time flew by, and the end of the year arrived. Winter snow blanketed Tianya Valley. Guan, accompanied by 3 monkey demons, patrolled Medicine Valley. After checking everything, he headed toward the loft, looking at his lifespan as he went. Although he had been busy sowing seeds this year, the increase in his lifespan was not slow. Thanks to the contributions from Outer Disciples Cave and Mystic Valley, he had gained a fair amount of lifespan. In a few more years, when Tianya Valley and Third Medicine Valley welcomed their harvest, his lifespan would start to surge. Just as Guan arrived in front of the loft, Luo Hun came over, looking very awkward and hesitant as he said, "Lately, why haven't you brought any books? Do you want to read books? I thought you didn't like them. Medicine Valley is dull, there needs to be something to relax the Daoist heart. All right, next time I'll bring you the latest volume of Investiture of the Gods." Cough cough, bringing a few volumes of Green Hero Travelogue wouldn't be bad either. Chapter 55, Chapter 55, Supreme Immortal Venerable, Sect Leader changes hands. Seeing Luo Hun's awkward expression, Guan suddenly realized, so this fellow shares my tastes, why didn't you say so earlier? Guan immediately patted Luo Hun on the shoulder and laughed, "Brother Luo, I didn't expect you to share my preferences. To be honest, compared to the battles and struggles over Daoist traditions in Investiture of the Gods, I prefer the tranquil interactions between people and the experience of roaming mountains and waters. Those are what truly refine the Daoist heart." His words made Luo Hun feel less embarrassed, and a smile spread across his face. The two began to talk freely about Green Hero Travelogue, and their relationship grew closer. However, Luo Hun still maintained his reserve, not daring to talk about the affairs between men and women in Green Hero Travelogue, but only about the strange and wonderful sights. Teasing the pseudo-earnest Luo Hun gave Guan a great sense of amusement. From now on, Tianya Valley wouldn't be so boring. Time flies like an arrow, and 3 years swiftly passed by. Another scorching summer arrived, and Guan was now 38 years old. Starting this year, the Third Medicine Valley would welcome the first batch of mature medicinal herbs, and he was looking forward to it. As for Tianya Valley, since it planted high-rank medical herbs, it would require more waiting. One morning, Guan was leading his disciples in drills in Mystic Valley. Even though Zhen Qin and the other two had gone to the Third Medicine Valley, 3 new servant disciples were welcomed, and Mystic Valley was still bustling. As Guan was twisting his waist, he suddenly sensed something and smiled. Xiao Chuan noticed his smile and couldn't help but ask, "Senior brother, what are you smiling at?" "It's nothing, continue practicing," Guan brushed it off, and Xiao Chuan had no choice but to drop the subject. A while later, the drills disbanded, the disciples scattered, and Guan walked towards his own loft. Just as he reached the foot of the building, a whizzing sound came from the distance. He turned his head and saw someone flying towards him on a sword. It was Li Yi. After many years, Li Yi was still clad in black robes, but there was a change in his demeanor, and a strand of white hair above his brow added a touch of weathering. From afar, Li Yi saw Guan and a smile cracked on his stern face, like an iceberg melting. Li Yi's cultivation had reached the 9 layers of the foundation establishment realm, and Guan felt that he was even stronger than Jilin had been, probably not far from core formation. After landing, Li Yi opened his arms and hugged Guan, which caused him to stiffen a bit. "Not bad, you've reached foundation establishment, it seems you've been working hard," Li Yi said, pinching Guan's shoulder with a satisfied smile on his face. Guan naturally wriggled out of his clutches and grinned, "You're finally back, has everything been going smoothly?" Li Yi shook his head and said, "Not smoothly, but I've turned misfortune into a blessing. Let's go inside and talk." Guan nodded and led him upstairs. An hour later, in the loft, Guan and Li Yi sat opposite each other, drinking. After hearing about Li Yi's experiences over the years, he was filled with emotion. "It feels like it could be written into a book," Guan remarked. Li Yi laughed and said, "Indeed, though I've had several close brushes with death, they've made me who I am now." Over the years, Li Yi had gone south in search of a legacy from a divinity transformation cultivator, contended with various prodigies, and finally broke through the encirclement. Unfortunately, that divinity transformation cultivator had actually intended to possess him. Luckily, he turned danger into safety. Although he didn't explain how he escaped the peril, Guan conjectured it had to do with the soul in his body. After the crisis of possession, Li Yi learned a whiff of sword intent in that cultivator's cave, which he absorbed over 3 years, transforming him. Afterward, he returned from Jizhu in the south, encountering other twists and turns on his way. For instance, he came across a woman oppressed by a local noble family and rescued her. Unfortunately, shortly after he left, he heard the family had been forced to death. The tragedy was widely discussed among the common folk, prompting him to return and slaughter that noble family, stirring up much controversy in the region. The local government pursued Liu for several days before giving up and even withdrew the warrant for his arrest. When Liu recounted this part of his journey, his tone was not overly sorrowful but rather cold. Guan poured another cup of wine for Liu, who suddenly asked, "Junior brother Gu, what is the purpose of cultivating to immortality? Is it merely in pursuit of the elusive longevity? But from ancient times to now, has there ever been a person who truly achieved immortality?" Hearing this, Guan poured wine for himself and said, "I'm not sure what those who pursue immortality are truly seeking, but I know that as long as you live, you should feel at ease. Whatever makes you feel at ease is what you should do. I spend my days planting flowers and herbs. To many, that seems like a waste of years meant for cultivation, but I find such days interesting. The herbs I grow can help the sect and have some significance, right?" He didn't think Liu was being affected. After going through certain events, it's normal to feel lost. Hearing this, Liu pinched his wine cup and fell into deep thought. This contemplation lasted half an hour, and Guan didn't disturb him, but instead began to read Green Hero Travelogue. Once Liu had finished thinking, his eyes brightened. He looked up at Guan and said, "Great truths are never found in grand temples. Junior brother Gu, thank you, I think I know what to do now." He stood up, took out a small white jade bottle from his storage bag, and said, "This is an elixir made from 1,000-year-old spirit fat that refines muscles and bones. You can take at most 2 a year. I must return to form my core." Without waiting for Guan to ask him to stay, he jumped out the window and left. Guan was silent. Why did this youngster always like to jump out of the window? His gaze settled on the white jade bottle on the table. Why does everyone love to give him gifts? A helpless expression crossed Guan's face, but he still put the bottle into his storage bag. The summer nights arrive late. Guan went to the third medicine valley. Just stepping off the teleportation array, his gaze was drawn to a small pavilion in the distance, where Zhen Qin, Su Han, Ye Yan, and Zhou Tongzhu were sitting together, chatting merrily. Guan walked over immediately. Zhou Tongzhu, who was chatting away, glanced at Guan and smiled. When the others followed his gaze, they quickly stood up. Approaching the pavilion, Guan asked with annoyance, "Why are you here again? Haven't you emptied your storage bag yet?" 3 years had passed, and Zhou Tongzhu had come no less than 10 times, each time bringing medicinal herbs, elixirs, and magic artifacts. During their last spar, it took Guan 10 moves to defeat him, and he barely won. Well, he had to pretend it was barely a victory. Zhou Tongzhu laughed and said, "Don't worry, I'm not here to spar with you this time. I'm here to say goodbye. I'm leaving. I've been at the Supreme Sect for so many years, and you're the true friend I've made. I really acknowledge you." "A friend?" Guan didn't know how to respond. Ye Yan looked at Zhou Tongzhu with some reluctance. Over the years, every time Zhou Tongzhu visited, he would give Ye Yan cultivation advice, amounting to half a master to him. "What do you mean you've been at the Supreme Sect for so many years? Are you not a disciple of the Supreme Sect?" Zhen Qin asked in shock, his eyes wide open. Su Han and Ye Yan were also greatly shaken. They all had the same thought. Could this person be a spy from the demon path? Zhou Tongzhu said with a smug smile, "Forget it, I wanted to keep a low profile because I was afraid of putting pressure on you. But now that I'm about to depart, I won't pretend any longer I am Zhou Tongzhu of the Jushan sect." With that revelation, Zhen Qin and the others were stunned, which only made Zhou Tongzhu enjoy their reaction even more. He even lifted his chin, looking at Guan, wanting to see his shocked expression. Guan's face changed dramatically, sending Zhou Tongju's mood soaring. However, Zhen Qin suddenly fired a cold shot. Is your fame really that big? Zhou Tongju's pupils slowly dilated, and he stiffened on the spot. Fearing that he would change his mind and decide to stay, Guan quickly said, "Indeed, it's huge. To suppress all the young disciples of the Supreme Sect, I hadn't realized. My apologies, my apologies." Upon hearing this, Zhou Tongju's face relaxed as Guan signaled with his eyes, prompting Zhen Qin and the others to exclaim in amazement. "My God! Did I hear that right? It's actually you! How is that possible?" Zhou Tongju's face twitched uncontrollably. For some reason, these words sounded grating to him. Taking a deep breath, he said, "There will be major changes at the Supreme Sect. Be careful on regular days. We'll meet again if fate allows, in the green hills and clear waters." With that, he leapt up, transformed into a rainbow light, and soared towards the horizon. The three disciples were so astonished by his movement technique that they stared blankly in the direction he had gone. Guan waved his hand and said, "Disperse. Focus on cultivating well. Reach the foundation establishment soon, so you at least have the qualifications to see him again n/o/vel/b/in.c//om." The three disciples quickly bowed and departed. Guan pondered Zhou Tongju's words, major changes at the Supreme Sect. He hoped his Medicine Valley wouldn't be affected. Turning around, he headed towards his own attic. Once upstairs and in the room, he closed the door and sat down at the desk. He took out paper and a brush and began pondering the book of Guzong and his son. The final volume of Investiture of the Gods had been delivered to the book collection hall, and now it was time for a new book. Following Investiture of the Gods, the next must-write was Journey to the West, but he feared its impact would be too great. So, he decided to put it aside for now and first write a novel about Guzong and his son to cool down the fever, making Panan seem less divine. Lately, the outer disciples had exaggerated Panan to the point of being a living immortal, which made Guan somewhat uneasy. He planned to borrow classic plots from web novels he read in his previous life for his second book. Guzong had been cultivating for 500 years and was renowned in the immortal cultivation world as the strongest elder of the Supreme Sect. In the year his deist friend gave birth to their youngest son, the demon path invaded, and the Supreme Sect faced complete devastation. Using his divine skills, Guzong called upon the power of heaven and earth to annihilate the demon path, but he also fell into a space rift caused by his divine skills. People thought he had died, but he had actually landed on a deserted island overseas, where he accidentally discovered an immortal's inheritance. 20 years later, Guzong returned, only to find his son, Guyu, had been demoted to a servant disciple because someone had stolen his heavenly spirit root. Zhou Tongju and Guyu were of the same age. They were good friends from childhood, and even after Guyu was demoted, Zhou Tongju still looked forward to his resurgence. After centuries of grudges and grievances, the two became the pillars of the Supreme Sect, guarding the peace of the immortal cultivation world. After contemplating, Guan's eyes brightened. He started to write. Chapter 1, The Fallen Genius. The second year after Zhou Tongju's departure, in the spring season, Guan went to the outer sect to submit his book. Lu Chong was very interested in the Supreme Immortal Venerable. He had written and chatted with him for a long time. As he left the book collection hall, Guan overheard other disciples discussing rumors that the sect leader, Lv Badian, had deviated while cultivating and had perished by accident, with Elder Chu Tiankai taking over as sect leader. Guan was alarmed. Was the sect leader murdered? He hurriedly left the outer city and headed for the Third Medicine Valley. Upon entering the valley, he saw Guyu waiting there. Behind Guyu was a hunched old man, gaunt and withered, with a head of white hair and wearing tattered clothes, inspecting the gardens with his eyes. Seeing Guan arriving on his sword, Guyu's face lit up with a smile, and he stood up, saying, "You've finally returned. This is a distant relative of my father's, you can call him Elder Tian. His spirit root qualification is mediocre and he has no hope of reaching the foundation establishment in his lifetime. He will assist you in the Medicine Valley from now on, you can order him around as you please. Gu An's gaze shifted to the old man, his eyes showing a slight change. LV Badian, Qi Cultivation Realm, 6 layers 742/850/3200. Chapter 56, Chapter 56, Heavenly Destiny Returns to G. LV Badian. Isn't this the sect leader who just perished? Guan imagined many possibilities, but his expression did not change much. Curious, he asked, since he is a distant relative of your father, why not arrange a better place? This Medicine Valley is both dirty and tiring. Gu Yu laughed, the Supreme Sect wasn't founded by my dad. Being placed in this Medicine Valley is already better than the outer sect's Medicine Valley. Looking at him, he seemed unaware of Elder Tian's true identity. Guan also couldn't outright refuse. Wouldn't refusing imply that he knew Elder Tian's real identity? Gu Yu dragged Guan upstairs, and throughout, Elder Tian did not look back at Guan even once. After entering the room, Gu Yu closed the door, turned around excitedly, and asked, "How is it? Should the book be out by now?" Guan smiled and said, "It's out. After much thought, I have made you the protagonist." "Really? Really, you'll see it soon." Guan smiled as he nodded. Pan An's name was already famous throughout the Taekang Immortal cultivation world. His second book would definitely be heavily promoted by the Supreme Sect, especially with Supreme Sect mentioned inside. This book was to satisfy the high-ranking officials, and after this, Guan would not write about them again. It's worth mentioning that, this time upon releasing the book collection hall allocated an additional 20% of the profits to him, granted by the Supreme Sect. Hearing Guan's words, Gu Yu became extremely excited. He immediately pulled out a spirit stone from his storage bag, and slammed it onto the table, saying, "Thanks." Guan's eyes turned to the spirit stone on the table, and his brows lifted. Such strong spiritual energy. Gu Yu smiled proudly, "This is a supreme-grade spirit stone, worth 100 top-grade spirit stones. I only have 2 in total, given to me by my mother. It's a genuine token of appreciation. You just focus on writing, and I can handle anything else for you." 100 top-grade spirit stones? Guan was stunned. This guy was truly lavish. The disparity between the rich and poor in the immortal cultivation world was just too vast. This one supreme-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 1,000,000 low-grade spirit stones. A servant disciple's monthly salary was only 1 low-grade spirit stone. Such a wealthy house. Guan felt a pang of envy, then accepted the supreme-grade spirit stone and smiled, "I won't disappoint you." Gu Yu was very excited, and began to inquire about the details of the book, but Guan kept his mouth sealed, increasing his anticipation. It wasn't long before Gu Yu left, Guan guessed he was heading to the book collection hall. After bidding Gu Yu farewell, Guan approached Elder Tian, introduced himself, and Elder Tian did the same, very respectfully, showing no signs of being the sect leader of the Supreme Sect. Elder Tian, at 742 years old, had a lifeline of 850 years, meaning he could only live another 108 years. Guan speculated it was related to an injury. With the sect leader's cultivation, his lifespan should be close to 2,000 years. Afterward, Guan took him for a walk around, explaining the workings of Medicine Valley, and what he should normally do. Elder Tian listened intently, occasionally asking about the species of medicinal herbs they passed by. He genuinely seemed interested in a farmer's life. Could it be that he had fallen from grace due to deviation? When Guan heard about the sect leader's misfortune, he instinctively thought the sect leader was sabotaged, especially with the ongoing strife between him and other elders for many years. But seeing Elder Tian's condition didn't seem so. Lifespan detection wouldn't lie to him, this person was indeed sect leader LV Badian. Elder Tian's arrival didn't change the daily routine of the Third Medicine Valley. Zhen Qin and the other two spent most of their time cultivating, hardly interacting with him. However, every time Guan returned, he always chatted with Elder Tian. Half a year swiftly passed. Autumn arrived, leaves falling and drifting into Tianya Valley. Guan stood on a small path between gardens, watching three monkey demons sweep the fallen leaves. In the distance, Luo Hun sat on a hillside, holding the green hero travelogue, absorbed in reading. Beside him stood his spear, with wisps of spiritual energy entering it, forming a faint whirlwind. Suddenly, Guan sensed something and glanced towards the distance. He looked away just as quickly. Before long, a figure approached from the mouth of the valley, dressed in a black and white robe, debonair, holding a folding fan in his hand. Li Xuandao. After many years, the Emperor of Taikang still boasted an impressive presence. Guan turned his head, launching a lifespan detection. The ninth layer of Divinity Transformation Realm. Luo Hun on the hillside also noticed the arrival of Li Xuandao and quickly got up, tucked the green hero travelogue into his storage bag, and then carried his spear down the hill. Luo Hun arrived before Li Xuandao first to greet him, followed by Guan. As Li Xuandao walked towards the Medicine Valley Pavilion, he turned to Guan beside him and asked, "So, how is it? Are you satisfied with this Medicine Valley of mine?" Guan replied, "It's very good, beyond my expectations. Some of the high-rank medicinal herbs are even unheard of to me. Fortunately, Your Majesty provided me with a copy of the Medicinal Herb Chronicles." What did I instruct you before? Uncle. That's more like it. Li Xuandao laughed heartily. Luo Hun, standing by his side, had a subtle expression. Uncle? Luo Hun seemed to recall something, his expression turning peculiar. The three of them arrived at the pavilion laughing and talking. Li Xuandao sat down at the stone table while Luo Hun immediately poured him wine. Li Xuandao raised his hand to signal Guan to sit down as well. He looked at Guan and asked, "Li Yi should have returned to the Supreme Sect by now, right?" Guan nodded and said, "He came back last year." "Did he mention anything about his experiences over these years?" "Yes, Uncle should have sent someone to follow him, right?" "How dare we send someone to follow him? There are just informers everywhere. Tell me, how could a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator escape the sole possession of a Divinity Transformation Realm Great Cultivator? What secret is he hiding?" When Li Xuandao asked this, he picked up his wine cup, drained it in one go, and then looked at Guan with a smile. Guan frowned and said, "A secret? He did not tell me, and I could not possibly ask him directly n/o/vel/b/in. .c//om. Li Xuandao said with a half-smile, "My son has been mediocre since he was young, the least talented among all my children. Yet, ever since he joined the Supreme Sect, he has soared to great heights and continues to surprise me. I am naturally happy to see his growth, but I fear others might use him." Guan looked at his expression, suddenly finding it hard to judge his attitude towards Li Yi. But no matter what, Guan's heart was definitely with Li Yi. "Then I will try to inquire indirectly in the future," Guan mused, though he only said this, he had no intention of asking. Li Xuandao nodded in satisfaction, then turned to look at Luo Hun standing beside him and asked with a smile, "Luo Hun, do you think Li Yi has the potential to become crown prince?" Luo Hun's expression changed slightly, and he said in a deep voice, "I dare not assume too much." You're really no fun," Li Xuandao shook his head with a chuckle. He looked at Guan again, who hastily said, "Uncle, please don't ask me such things. I wish to avoid trouble and prefer to focus on gardening for you." "Ha ha ha." Li Xuandao laughed aloud, picked up a nearby jug of wine, and poured it directly into his mouth, much more boldly than before. Afterward, he picked up another jug and continued pouring. Guan realized that something was amiss. This emperor was troubled. Luo Hun noticed it too, and he asked with furrowed brows, "Your Majesty, has something happened?" After downing 3 jugs of wine, Li Xuandao laughed and said, "It's nothing serious. You must have read Investiture of the Gods, haven't you?" Luo Hun nodded and replied, "It's well written, and you like it very much, don't you?" "I indeed like it, but recently some have used Investiture of the Gods to criticize me, calling me King Zhou. The Li family has ruled for 500 years, they argue it's time for a change of emperor, for the heavenly destiny to return to the Ji family. In recent years, the Ji family frequently sends their youths out to exterminate demons and gain good reputation, deeply winning the hearts of the people," Li Xuandao said with a light laugh. Guan's heart skipped a beat. Luo Hun became furious, speaking sternly, "Your Majesty, who claims the heavenly destiny should be with the Ji family? I am always ready for your command, even if it means killing Panan, I am willing to go." "Good grief! No green hero travelogue for you then." Guan felt indignant internally, but his expression showed only concern. Li Xuandao snorted, "Foolish, killing Panan would only prove I am narrow-minded. I can't even tolerate a novelist." Guan was very pleased with Li Xuandao's words. "That's a wise emperor. Don't worry, Your Majesty, my next book will be Journey to the West, featuring an emperor with the Li surname. Though Journey to the West carries critical undertones, it targets the Jade Emperor, and the depiction of Emperor Li Shimin within the book is quite favorable. Though no heavenly court exists in this world, there is an immortal cultivation world. Criticizing the immortal cultivation world also fits well, aligning with the expectations the cultivators have about Panan, so long as he doesn't specifically target the supreme sect." As Guan pondered, Luo Hun remained angry. The prefects of various states all have their own backing, increasingly escaping the control of the court. Now that people's grievances are rising, using Investiture of the Gods to criticize me is probably just their first step. One day, the sword will hang before me. I need to cultivate my own power. Tianya Valley plays a significant role, you must not disappoint me, Li Xuandao said with a smile, standing up and walking towards the garden, with Guan and Luo Hun hurrying after him. It took 3 days before Li Xuandao finally departed. During these days, Li Xuandao always took the opportunity to express his expectations for Liya to Guan. The more he did so, the more Guan felt there was more to it. Anyway, he decided to let it go in one ear and out the other, unmotivated to involve himself in their father-son affairs. After Li Xuandao left, Guan also decided to leave. Before leaving, Luo Hun advised him not to bring Investiture of the Gods anymore, only Green Hero Travelogue. To this, Guan just chuckled. As seasons changed, another 3 years passed. This year, Tianya Valley welcomed its first batch of mature medicinal herbs, and Guan harvested nearly 5,000 years of lifespan, greatly lifting his spirits. Starting this year, his annual lifespan income was set to skyrocket, and his total lifespan had already exceeded 70,000 years. He was determined to reach 1,000,000 years. One day, Guan brought Suhan and Zhenqin to the outer sect. Both of them had reached the foundation establishment. Besides their constant cultivation, Guan had crafted many low-rank elixirs to help them achieve foundation establishment smoothly. After Guan delivered them to the Hall of Elders in the outer sect, he turned and left. Servant disciples needed to register in the Hall of Elders before they could officially become outer disciples. Just as he walked down a street, a familiar voice called out, "Senior brother, long time no see." Guan turned around to see Lu Jijia, dressed in the black attire of the Demon Extermination Hall, walking toward him, followed by 6 Demon Extermination Hall disciples. "How have you been recently?" Guan asked with a smile. Ever since the change in sect leadership, the Demon Extermination Hall's influence had surged, even surpassing that of the Law Enforcement Hall. It was common to encounter their members in the outer city. Lu Jijia approached him and nodded, "Quite well. Our master just promoted me. Not only has my treatment improved, but my authority has increased too. Senior brother, if you need anything in the future, just come to me. He took out a black token from his storage bag and handed it to Guan. Chapter 57, Chapter 57, The Aura of an Immortal Venerable, the Holy Daughter of the Daoshan Sect. Guan held the Demon Extermination Hall's token without refusing, and looked at Lujia with a gratified smile. Not bad, you've now become the person you once aspired to be. On hearing this, Lujia's mood became even more elated. He chuckled and said, in the past few years, I indeed walked on thin ice. I dared not contact you out of fear that it might implicate you. Now, the storm has passed, and from now on, we can stay in touch frequently. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Lujia hurriedly took his leave with others, claiming they needed to capture a spy from the demon path. Guan watched his retreating figure, feeling slightly conflicted. The reputation of the Demon Extermination Hall was not good, although it was the most powerful division in the outer sect, it was also the most disliked. It was said that if someone offended the Demon Extermination Hall, being accused of being a spy from the demon path by the hall meant certain death. Guan could clearly sense the disdainful and repulsive gazes from the people around him. He decided not to think too much about it and turned away to leave. An hour later, he arrived at the Third Medicine Valley. Just as he reached the entrance to the valley, he saw Elder Tian standing in front of the stele, pinching his beard, seemingly lost in thought. Over the years, Guan had become familiar with Elder Tian. Elder Tian behaved very much like a servant-disciple, and Zhen Qin, Su Han, and Yayan did not notice anything different about him. Guan also treated him as a servant-disciple. Elder Tian, why are you standing here? Guan walked towards Elder Tian while greeting him. Elder Tian looked at Guan, his face revealing a kind and gentle smile, his eyelids almost too heavy to lift, giving off the impression of being 1 foot in the grave. Valley Master, I was wondering why this place is called the Third Medicine Valley. Could it be that you have 2 other valleys? Elder Tian asked with a laugh. Guan walked up next to the stele and replied with a light chuckle, that's not the case. I only have this one herb valley besides. It's called the Third Medicine Valley because it reflects my principle in dealing with matters. I don't compete for first or second place, but I strive for third. I believe that sticking your head out too much in anything can lead to trouble. N/O/vel/B/jn.c//om. The top 3 are all formidable, but third place is the safest. Upon hearing this, Elder Tian's eyelids slightly opened as he fell into thought. Guan patted his shoulder and laughed, today I've brought roasted chicken and fine wine to taste together. This is a spirit chicken raised in the outer sect, costing me 10 low-grade spirit stones. Elder Tian snapped out of his reverie and followed in Guan's footsteps. Yayan was not practicing his spear technique at the valley entrance but was standing on the central pathway of the courtyard, his body erect, holding a long spear with one hand, and meditatively closing his eyes. As he put it, he was feeling the connection between himself and his spear. Guan never inquired about the spear technique or the body tempering technique Yayan practiced. He was not interested in spear technique, and since the mystic yellow dragon energy skill he practiced was already a body tempering technique, there was no need for another. Yaner, come and have a drink with us to celebrate your senior brother and senior sister becoming outer disciples, Guan called out loudly. Curious, Elder Tian asked, over the years, you've turned all the herbs that belong to you into elixirs for the disciples. What's your aim? Even if they are indebted to you, the relationship will likely fade over time. Why not use all the resources for yourself? And me, I'm just an old bag of bones, not knowing how long I'll live. Giving me elixirs, wouldn't that be wasteful? Having spent several years together, Elder Tian had come to have a fondness for Guan. Guan treated him well and did not ignore him as other disciples did, even willing to share elixirs to help him improve his cultivation level. Before his cultivation level declined, he could never have imagined there would be such a selfless person within the supreme sect. He even regretted his previous negligence towards the outer sect. Guan smiled and said, "I'm of mediocre talent. Being too obsessed with improving my cultivation level would only make my life painful. It's better to give it to the juniors who still harbor hope. As for you, Elder Tian, even though you're older than me, you are also considered my disciple. Naturally, I must treat everyone equally. Even if it doesn't increase your cultivation level by much, it will still boost your qi blood, letting you live better, right?" His gaze rested on Yan, a smile on his face. The sunlight cascaded down, illuminating his profile, causing Elder Tian to be somewhat moved. Elder Tian suddenly remembered what Gu Zong said when recommending Guan. Don't underestimate that youngster just because his cultivation level is low. The fact that he could write Investiture of the Gods shows the vastness of his heart. After gaining fame and wealth, he was still willing to stay devoted to the supreme sect and tirelessly contribute to it. Regarding character and magnanimity, I think he is superior to a great cultivator from the void-crossing realm. As he mulled over these thoughts, Elder Tian's mouth curved into a smile, as if influenced by Guan's own smile. Soon, the three of them gathered around the stone table, starting to drink and eat. Guan shared his experiences from that day, excluding the matters about Zhenqin and Su Han. He also brought up the Demon Extermination Hall to see what Elder Tian's take on it would be. However, Elder Tian remained indifferent, simply smacking his lips while holding a chicken leg. Yan spoke up, "I actually think the Demon Extermination Hall is quite good. Back in Mystic Valley, I encountered demon cultivators several times. The outer sect really is too chaotic. The Demon Extermination Hall's bad reputation is probably also due to demon path spies stirring up trouble in the dark." Guan nodded, considering this a possibility. Since the establishment of the Demon Extermination Hall, Mystic Valley indeed had not seen any demon cultivators again, nor any spies from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion coming to look for him. "Master, after I achieve foundation establishment, I don't want to stay in the Supreme Sect. I wish to join the military," Yan suddenly declared. "Good heavens! Talking of jumping ship in front of the former sect leader?" Guan asked, "Why?" Yan's face was resolute as he said, "The Supreme Sect prioritizes spirit root qualification. For someone like me, it's hard to stand out. Besides, joining the military would allow me to slay demons and rescue the common people. My parents were killed by a demon, and since I was young, I have vowed that once I've mastered spells, I will travel the world and be a knight who eradicates demons." Elder Tian lifted his eyes to look at him, nodding slightly. Guan revealed a smile and said, "I never expected you to hold such lofty ambitions. Your master supports you." Yan revealed a smile, immediately lifted his wine bowl, and toasted Guan, then poured another bowl and clinked bowls with Elder Tian. The atmosphere became even more harmonious. After Yan opened his heart, he talked more than usual, and Elder Tian also became more talkative. "Master, will we need to call for disciples from Mystic Valley later on?" Yan asked. Guan shook his head and said, "Let's wait until after your foundation establishment. I'm afraid others will disturb your path enlightenment. With me and Elder Tian here, we're sufficient to handle matters." All the different sectors were already on the right track, and the daily miscellaneous work was not much. After hearing this, Yan felt even more moved. Guan began to talk with him about the future, going through one jar of spiritual wine after another until Yan became drunk. At the end of summer, the scorching heat between heaven and earth was receding. Guan stood on the grassland of Mystic Valley, watching as 4 Demon Extermination Hall cultivators flew away, silent and speechless. Wuxin came over and said, "Brother, what are you daydreaming about? There are so many boxes, aren't you going to check them out?" The 4 individuals had just been sent by Lu Jijia and had come especially to bring gifts to Mystic Valley. They waited half an hour, leaving only after Guan returned. Guan's gaze returned from the distance to Wuxin, smiled, and said, "You can do the inventory. I guess it's all herbs." Upon hearing this, Wuxin's face broke into a smile. The feeling of being trusted was just too good. Now, Guan had handed over the full management power of Mystic Valley to Wuxin. He was only responsible for picking. Wuxin had no complaints about this arrangement. Why would he object if Guan could help him with some of the labor? What he wanted was power, not to drive Guan away. Without Guan, he always felt that something was missing in Mystic Valley, so he spent most of his time cultivating when Guan was away. Guan turned and walked towards the transmission array platform. After a while, he arrived at the third Medicine Valley. Since Zhenqin and Suhan had become outer disciples, this Medicine Valley had become very quiet. After Ye Yan finished his own work, he would practice his spear technique, and Elder Tian was also a man of few words. Guan stepped down from the array platform and saw Elder Tian squatting in the garden, admiring a fourth-grade herb. The old man often zoned out, and Guan had gotten used to it. He walked up to the attic and took out the Ziwei Array Chronicles to read. In the past year, he had been quietly delving into the Ziwei Array Chronicles and had gained substantial insights. Several ancient hours later, Guan felt something and immediately stored the Ziwei Array Chronicles in his storage bag, then waited inside the house. "Guan! Guan! Come out quickly!" Guan heard Guyu's shouting, which grew louder from a distance. The guy hadn't even landed before he started yelling. He got up, stepped out of the attic, and stood on the second-floor balcony. He saw Gu Zong and Guyu flying toward him on a golden wheel, their speed incredibly fast. After landing, Gu Zong put his magic artifact back into his sleeve, while Guyu took a step forward, excitedly said, "Guan, you're..." Ahem. Gu Zong let out a cough on purpose, and Guyu realized something and quickly shut his mouth. Guan stood upstairs, smiling, "You two, come up and talk." Guyu nodded and hurried upstairs, while Gu Zong turned around and gestured for Elder Tian to come over. The group of four gathered in the upstairs room, where Gu Zong raised his hand and cast 2 restrictions on the windowsill. Guyu, holding on to Guan, sat him down, still excited. "The Supreme Immortal Venerable is a complete success. The entire immortal cultivation world is watching, and not only that, but the surrounding dynasties and sects are also purchasing this book from the Supreme Sect." Ha ha ha, when the Supreme Immortal Venerable first came out years ago, how many people ridiculed Panan for losing his talent. Now, in just a few years, everyone is chasing after it, all anticipating me, Guyu, to prove my genius name. Seeing how excited he was made Guan want to laugh and cry. That the Supreme Immortal Venerable would become famous didn't surprise him at all. After all, such a story of rising against the odds and face-slapping the strong, is a huge emotional impact for the immortal cultivation world. Gu Zong spoke up, "Our visit today is not just to talk about this, but it is related. The holy daughter of the Daoshan sect is preparing to come to the Supreme sect to cultivate, and she's coming for you." The Daoshan sect comes from the Great Yu dynasty adjacent to the Taikang dynasty and is the #1 sect of the Great Yu dynasty. Their holy daughter is the daughter of the sect hierarch of the Daoshan sect. Her arrival can establish a long-term friendly relationship between the Supreme sect and the Daoshan sect. When the time comes, I'll have to bring the Daoshan sect's holy daughter to meet you. Don't worry, this will not be disclosed. You only need to meet her alone. She has promised not to reveal your identity. Guan felt overwhelmed. I've become part of the diplomatic corps? Gu Zong stroked his beard and smiled. The Supreme Immortal Venerable has played a significant role in the development of the Supreme Sect. The Hall of Elders appreciates you very much. If you can persuade the holy daughter of the Daoshan sect to stay, the Hall of Elders will grant you a seedling of a 7th-grade spirit tree. Once it grows, it will significantly enhance the local spiritual energy, and even if your qualifications are mediocre, it won't be difficult to reach core formation in the future. They wanted to grant you a cultivation technique or a high-rank Dharma artifact, but you said you are averse to conflict and only like gardening. Hence, they decided on the 7th grade spirit tree instead. This tree can also help with the entire Medicine Valley's harvest, its benefits immeasurable. Chapter 58. Chapter 58. If you became the sect leader, what would you do? 7-tier spirit tree. This is the grade and rank of the green vine tree. The supreme sect actually managed to produce a spirit tree on par with the holy tree of the Thousand Autumn Pavilion? Could it be that the green vine tree within the 8 scenic caves isn't a true holy tree, or perhaps it hasn't fully matured yet? Guan became excited instantly, as he simply couldn't refuse such a treasure. What's so difficult about keeping the holy daughter behind? Doesn't she like to read books? I'll write her some spin-off stories of investiture of the gods. When will the holy daughter arrive? Guan took a deep breath and asked, his joyful heart not showing on the surface. Instead, he feigned worry and solemnity. Elder Guzong smiled and said, she will arrive within a year at most, you don't have to feel pressured. Gu Yu, standing nearby, teased, don't worry about her expecting you to reciprocate with your person, after all, the gap in cultivation level is evident. She just likes your book. Guan nodded, as he was not so narcissistic to think that of all the people who liked investiture of the gods, it was only about him. Elder Guzong looked at Elder Tian standing by and asked, how have you been staying here? Elder Tian nodded and said, very good, the Valley Master has treated me well. Guan felt helpless inside his heart. Had Elder Guzong brought his distant relative in fearing that he wouldn't be suspicious? No way. The act must be played through completely. Guan looked towards Elder Guzong, hesitating to speak. Elder Guzong seemed to notice his confusion and said with a smile, he has long known of your pan and identity. It's because he likes investiture of the gods that I asked him to come here. Besides him, only the people of the Hall of Elders know. Don't worry, we are even more concerned than you about your pan and identity being exposed. Before the appearance of investiture of the gods, there were always disciples writing books, but the impact brought by Panan had been unprecedented. No one had anticipated that a book could bring more disciples to a sect, resources for cultivation, and even help the sect with foreign relations, especially after the book Supreme Immortal Venerable came out. The entire world's attention was on Supreme Sect. Being in a high position, he saw it most clearly. Guan breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Gu Yu said, Zhou Tongzhou has been quite good to Gu Yu, I take back my previous words. Let's not have Gu Yu bully him anymore. Guan looked at him, his gaze peculiar. Elder Guzong smiled and said, my own image isn't bad either. No matter where I go, I can hear people mentioning my name, asking when I will return to clean up those evil people for my son. Cough cough, we can't reveal that in advance. If we did, there would be no suspense. That's true. Guan changed the subject, inquiring about the holy daughter of Daoshan sect, knowing he must find out as much as possible to better face her. Elder Guzong began to introduce the holy daughter. Shenzhen, with the triple spirit root, the youngest daughter of the Daoshan sect hierarch, although not the top in talent, her aptitude for musical spells is incredibly high, and she normally loves zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Just by the introduction, Guan felt that Shenzhen's character wasn't very dominant. With a liking for zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, her temperament should be quite good. Late at night, the 8 scenic caves. Beneath the green vine tree, Guan was practicing swordsmanship, practicing the wood spirit sword technique. The wood spirit sword technique was the swordsmanship Zolin had passed on to him as a test of his depth. This technique wasn't rare, it was purchasable within the outer city. Because it was a wood attribute, Guan decided to practice it himself and not invest lifespan into this sword technique. But, isn't real-time just another form of lifespan? With his mastery of the Taekang Divine Shocking Sword and his exceptional talent as someone with the 5 elements heavenly spirit root, Guan found a genius's sense in the wood spirit sword technique. He had already mastered the wood spirit sword technique and was now pursuing a higher realm. Every cultivation technique, spell, and ultimate skill has minor realms, which according to his summary, from low to high, are initial learning, initial insight, proficiency, minor achievement, integration, mastery, pinnacle, and returning to simplicity. It felt like leveling up proficiency in a game, which Guan found quite interesting. The Sky Dragon, a Zhonglong, watched Guan practicing his sword technique from above the tree. It now possessed the dignity of a true dragon, without any deformity. Guan moved within a 3-zhong radius underneath the tree, creating a series of afterimages as if nearly 10 versions of himself were practicing swordsmanship. His heavenly residence sword in hand was extremely sharp, with strength energy overflowing. This strength energy dissipated after traveling some distance without damaging any of the plants around. After practicing for an ancient hour, Guan finally stopped. Clang! The heavenly residence sword sheathed with a sound like a dragon's chant. He threw the heavenly residence sword into his storage bag and then stretched lazily. The Sky Dragon descended from the sky, speaking in a young boy's tender voice, "Master, that was amazing. Can you teach me?" Guan glanced at it and asked with a smile, "Can your dragon claws wield a sword?" "With claw as sword, wouldn't that work?" the Sky Dragon asked, blinking its dragon eyes. Guan paused for a moment, struck by the idea. Interesting. He immediately took out the wood spirit sword manual he had drawn from his storage bag and threw it to the Sky Dragon, saying, "Then practice on your own. When I come back, you can ask me anything you don't understand." The Sky Dragon caught the sword manual with its claws and quickly said, "Remember to bring me some roast chicken." Guan nodded with a smile and then turned to leave. The Sky Dragon landed and laid the sword manual on the ground, flipping through it with its claws. After leaving the 8 scenic caves, Guan walked into the forest. Beneath the night sky, the forest was covered with snow, yet he left no footprints. Early the next morning, just after Guan had accompanied the disciples through their drills, he was planning to head to the Third Medicine Valley when Yelan arrived. Junior sister has arrived, so naturally, Guan must keep her company. The two of them went up to the loft to chat. Guan first inquired about her recent condition. Even if he were busy, she would visit him every year. Guan would be lying if he said he wasn't moved. Since last year, disciples from the outer sect have frequently gone missing. Our law enforcement hall has investigated, but cannot find the real culprit. Instead, it's the demon extermination hall that constantly finds spies from the demonic cult to admit their guilt, Yelan sighed. After the sect leader position changed hands, she and Lujia ceased contact, mainly because their respective departments were at odds, having reached the point of being utterly incompatible. Guan laughed and said, "Then let the demon extermination hall do the catching, which would be perfect because you can spend time cultivating." Yelan shook her head and said, "It's not that simple. The leader of the Demon Extermination Hall wants to annex the Law Enforcement Hall, and it seems like the Outer Sect's Great Elder has similar intentions. If our hall fails to accomplish anything, it will eventually be dissolved. It's fine. If it's dissolved, just come back. The elixirs I can provide are no worse than what the Law Enforcement Hall offers." "That won't do, what about you if you give them to me?" Yelan outright refused, her expression very serious. Seeing this, Guan couldn't say much more, he could only change the topic to discuss other matters. Since Yelan wanted to stay a few more days, Guan decided to stay in Mystic Valley until after the Spring Festival was over before leaving. After the Spring Festival, the winter snow had completely melted. Guan first went to Tianya Valley and harvested thousands of years of lifespan before planting anew. After spending 2 days there, he headed to the Third Medicine Valley. Mystic Valley was bustling, Tianya Valley had 3 monkey demons, neither were desolate, but the Third Medicine Valley was different. Each time Guan visited, it was utterly silent. Yayan and Elder Tian both enjoyed this tranquility, not disturbing each other. Guan walked into a garden and began to harvest the ripe medicinal herbs. Elder Tian approached, curious. He asked, "Why do you always pick them yourself?" Guan replied, "I must do something, and when I personally pick them and wrap them up, I feel a sense of satisfaction from contributing to the section." Hearing this, Elder Tian laughed and said, "You are indeed contributing, it's not just self-satisfaction." "I hope the higher UPS feel the same way," Guan said with a light laugh as he continued picking. Suddenly, Elder Tian asked, "What would you do if you were made the sect leader, n/o/vel/b/in. .c//om?" Guan's heart skipped a beat, but his movements didn't stop as he said with annoyance, "Stop daydreaming, you're not the sect leader, how could you pass it to me? Besides, I can only manage Medicine Valley, not the millions of disciples in the Supreme Sect. With my cultivation level, who would listen to me if I really became the sect leader?" He definitely did not want to become the sect leader. He wanted to cultivate in peace, not face the pressure head-on. If he became the sect leader and met an enemy he couldn't defeat, could he run away? Guan was not so loyal to the Supreme Sect. Elder Tian laughed and asked no more. Elder Tian followed Guan into the loft after he finished picking. "Actually, I know an extraordinary cultivation technique, do you want to learn it?" Even Elder Guzong doesn't know it, Elder Tian suddenly asked. "I'm not learning. Wouldn't it be better to write books with that time? Haven't you seen? I don't usually practice, my cultivation level depends entirely on elixirs." "You're still young, how can you be so? You don't understand, right? This is called enjoying life. I like to act within my capacity. Of course, that's just me. Everyone has different pursuits," Guan said casually. "What's with this old man and his chattiness today? Trying to ruin my Daoist heart?" Elder Tian wanted to continue speaking, but suddenly, a noise came from the sky. Both of them turned their heads to look. They saw Guzong flying on a magic artifact with a black-clothed woman behind him, her face covered with a black veil, revealing only a pair of bright and captivating eyes. The holy daughter of the Daoshan sect had arrived? Guan asked Elder Tian to place the herbs inside the house first while he turned to greet Guzong and his companion. He conducted a lifespan detection. Shenzhen, Elixir Formation Realm 2nd Layer 78/660/1050. After the golden wheel landed, Guzong smiled and said, "Guan, this is the holy daughter of the Daoshan sect, Shenzhen. You must treat her well." He turned to Shenzhen, who lifted her hand to salute him. He nodded in acknowledgement and swiftly left on his golden wheel. Shenzhen looked at Guan, her eyes scrutinizing him intently. Just by looking at her eyes, one could imagine that she was an exceptionally beautiful woman. Guan saluted with his hand, saying, "My name is Guan, it's a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Shen." Shenzhen nodded slightly, then curiously asked, "Which do you prefer, investiture of the gods or supreme immortal venerable? Testing me right off the bat?" Guan, unruffled, replied, "I like both. It's not possible for someone to like only one book. Depending on one's mood, they would want to read different books, right?" At this, Shenzhen's eyes immediately lit up. "Actually, I've written a book too. Do you want to see?" asked Shenzhen, blinking. Guan naturally wouldn't refuse and said, "Shall we go upstairs to take a look?" Shenzhen nodded, then followed Guan up to the second floor of the loft. Guan originally wanted to leave the door open, as it could be awkward for a man and a woman to be alone in a room, but Shenzhen closed the door behind them. They sat down at the table, and Shenzhen took a book out from her storage bag. Her brows slightly furrowed as she seemed to hesitate. After a moment's thought, she still handed the book in her hand to Guan. Guan took it and his brows shot up. Black Hero's Travelogue? What in the world? Chapter 59, Chapter 59, The Great Demon Calamity. This book title really shouldn't be chosen. Guan suddenly dared not open the book, Could it be that the Green Hero Travelogue was written by Shen Zhen? Then his perception of the author would shatter. That's not right. Shen Zhen comes from the Daoshan sect of the Great Yu dynasty. How could she possibly publish a book within the Supreme sect? After realizing this, Guan calmed down and began to read through Black Hero's Travelogue. Shen Zhen looked down at the table, her ears slightly red among her long hair. After Guan read the first page, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She wasn't the author of Green Hero Travelogue. The difference in writing was apparent, but it was also clear that she was indeed imitating the Green Hero Travelogue. He patiently read on. Every story in Green Hero Travelogue starts with the local landscape, first describing the scenery, then the interactions between people. The Black Hero's Travelogue did the same. However, Shen Zhen's experience was obviously inferior to the author of the Green Hero Travelogue. The descriptions of landscapes in her book were somewhat lacking, at least in Guan's eyes. They weren't as visually compelling as those in the Green Hero Travelogue. The room fell into silence. Late on, Shen Zhen stood up and went to look at the bookshelf nearby. An hour passed by before Guan finally closed the Black Hero's Travelogue, and Shen Zhen, holding a book, turned her head and asked, "How is it?" Guan asked, "Do you like the Green Hero Travelogue?" Standing in front of the bookshelf, Shen Zhen nodded slightly and said, "Aside from cultivation techniques, the first book I read was the Green Hero Travelogue, but my favorite is still your Supreme Immortal Venerable." "That's quite common, but authentically so." Guan laughed and said, "Actually, I also really like the Green Hero Travelogue. It was because I read it that I couldn't resist the urge to start writing." Shen Zhen immediately came over, noticeably more excited than before, her eyes gleaming as she started to discuss the Green Hero Travelogue with Guan. Her Black Hero's Travelogue also involves romance between men and women, but it's not as explicit as the Green Hero Travelogue, and falls within the scope of normal books. Through the Green Hero Travelogue, their relationship quickly grew closer. They talked from the Green Hero Travelogue to the investiture of the gods, and then to the Supreme Immortal Venerable. After a long while, Guan couldn't help but ask, "Have you ever met the author of the Green Hero Travelogue?" Shen Zhen shook her head slightly and said, "Although I really like his Green Hero Travelogue, I feel that he's not very serious. I don't want to meet him, but you're different. From the investiture of the gods to the Supreme Immortal Venerable, your styles are so different, it makes me very curious about you." Upon hearing this, Guan felt slightly disappointed. Who exactly is the Green Hero? That was his biggest curiosity within the Supreme sect. After finishing Supreme Immortal Venerable, will you continue to write about conflicts in the Daoist tradition like in the investiture of the gods? Shen Zhen looked at Guan and asked. Guan responded vaguely, "Maybe." "What about you, Ms. Shen, will you stay in the Supreme sect?" Shen Zhen laughed and said, "The Supreme sect pressures you, huh?" "Actually, we just need a nominal alliance. The Daoshan sect also needs to join hands with the Supreme sect, to deter other sects within the Great Yu dynasty, as well as face the Great Demon Calamity together." Guan raised an eyebrow and pursued, "What is this Great Demon Calamity?" "On this continent, there are 9 dynasties including Taikeng and Great Yu, which have expelled powerful demons. As a result, the regions outside the 9 dynasties have become overrun with demons. Now, the external demons have grown to threaten the dynasties. Even though various immortal cultivation sects often dispatch disciples to exterminate these demons, the territories outside are vast, and some exceptionally talented demons have grown up. In a maximum of 100 years, the dynasties will face a demon calamity not seen in thousands of years, and dynasties will certainly fall." When Shen Zhen spoke of this matter, her expression was solemn. After listening, Guan felt pressure surging towards him. He already imagined a scenario where the landscapes were shattered, the Supreme Sect's front lines were failing, forcing servant disciples to join the battlefield. No way! Within 100 years, he must extend his lifespan to 1,000,000 years, unlock the next function, and dramatically increase his cultivation level. Guan thought to himself, then followed up with a question, given the situation, why don't you focus on cultivating rather than thinking about writing books? Although Shen Zhen wasn't as good as Ji Xiaoyu, Zhou Tongzhu, or Li Ye, her talents weren't poor, and with the backing of the Daoshan sect, she could certainly climb higher if she focused on cultivating. Hearing this, Shen Zhen lightly laughed and said, everyone has their own destiny, cultivation is not mine. I prefer reading and writing books. Who knows, maybe one day I will achieve enlightenment through them. Who said that absorbing nature's spiritual energy is the only way to enlightenment? I have reviewed various books from ancient times to the present, and it seems there are no qi cultivators who have survived to this day. Guan saw her in a new light. She really dared to dream. They talked a bit more, and when Shen Zhen prepared to leave, Guan got up to see her off. Downstairs, she summoned a flying sword, stepped on it, and with a parting word, flew towards the horizon. Young Master Gu, I will set up my cave nearby. Let's exchange more in the future. Guan watched her departing figure with a smile on his face. He was happy not because Shen Zhen was going to live nearby, but because he was glad about acquiring a 7th-tier spirit tree. The Supreme Sect acted swiftly. Not 3 days after Shen Zhen left, a sapling of the 7th-tier spirit tree arrived, personally delivered by Gu Zong. After Gu Zong left, Guan, carrying the sapling of the 7th-tier spirit tree, went to the central area of the garden. Though it was called a sapling, this tree was already 10 feet tall. Guan planted it on a grassy area connected to 4 sections of the garden, with Elder Tian and Yayan watching from behind. After planting it, Guan looked at the tree, his face full of a brilliant smile. Mystic Pure Tree, 7th tier 48/8999/65,000. 65,000 years of maximum lifespan, incomparable to mere mortals. Elder Tian chuckled and said, the Mystic Pure Tree is extraordinary. Although it cannot bear fruit, cultivating under it can calm the mind and enhance the spirit. Upon hearing this, Guan's smile grew even brighter, and he said, Elder Tian, you must take good care of the Mystic Pure Tree in the future and ensure it remains undamaged. Rest assured, it has been planted in the soil, and its vitality is even stronger than my old bones. Hearing Elder Tian's words, Guan shook his head in amusement. The old man did have a sense of humor. Afterward, Guan turned and left. Elder Tian and Yayan stayed chatting in front of the tree, not following his pace. Guan walked to the edge of Medicine Valley near the cliffside. In this patch of grass, a tree was planted, but it showed no signs of growth yet. It was the 6th-rank spirit tree, the human-faced tree's root, which Yalan had previously given. This root had been buried for a few years and remained in a state of revival, aged 0. Guan had tried to aid it with his wood attribute spirit power, but like a bottomless pit, it would absorb his spiritual power without showing any effects. He squatted in front of the human-faced tree's root, the point of the root barely poking out of the soil. After watching for a while, Guan suddenly felt a faint flow of spiritual energy from the ground towards the human-faced tree. Tracing it back to its source, he was surprised to find it came from the Mystic Pure Tree. Could the Mystic Pure Tree be helping the human-faced tree revive? Guan was excited but also worried. He feared that the human-faced tree might drain the Mystic Pure Tree completely, especially since this thing came from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion and its name was somewhat ominous. If the human-faced tree were to grow into something evil, Guan would uproot it, as he could not allow it to destroy the 3rd Medicine Valley. Guan felt it necessary to keep someone watching over it, to prevent it from growing unnoticed. Yayan had reached the 8th level of the energy cultivation realm. His progress in cultivation was mostly dependent on elixirs. Although he absorbed nature's spiritual energy while practicing with his spear, it did not greatly increase his cultivation level. Once he left, it would be time to hire some help. After the height of summer had passed, 43-year-old Guan arrived at the outer city. First, he submitted his writings, then strolled the streets. He noticed that the outer city was not as bustling as before. Although there were still many disciples coming and going on the streets, most of them looked serious and spoke in hushed voices. Looking up, Guan saw 4 disciples from the demon extermination hall descend from the sky and land in front of a distant pavilion. They surrounded a disciple who had just exited the building and began interrogating him. The disciple was visibly irritated. A verbal altercation ensued, and then a fight broke out. When one of the demon extermination hall disciples revealed a token, the disciple surrendered and was meekly escorted away. Catching demon spies for so many years and they still haven't caught them all? Guan frowned, confused but not intending to intervene. As long as they did not bother him, it was fine. He headed towards the beast hall, planning to keep a few demon beasts in the Third Medicine Valley so Elder Tian would not feel lonely. Elder Tian was diligent and had earned Guan's favor. Guan now considered him as his own servant disciple. An hour later, Guan walked out of the main entrance of the beast hall with 3 bags at his waist, each a beast control bag containing a live creature, but each bag could only hold 1 demon beast. As he stepped out, he coincidentally ran into Lujia. This time, Lujia was alone. He approached the beast hall with a gloomy expression, but his face immediately brightened with a smile when he saw Guan and he hurried over. "Senior brother, are you here to buy demon beasts?" Lujia asked warmly, his complexion paler than before and his brow marked with a sinister aura, giving off an eerie vibe overall. Guan nodded and asked with concern, "You look pale, are you all right? What could be wrong with me?" "I'm just tired from recent training," Lujia shook his head. Guan noticed a hidden trace of demonic qi within him. It was so subtle that it would have been difficult to detect without close observation. Has this guy turned into a demon cultivator? Lujia was not forthcoming, so naturally, Guan did not pry further. After exchanging a few polite words, Lujia reminded before parting, "Senior brother, try not to go out of the valley at night. Lately, a powerful demon cultivator has infiltrated the outer sect." With that, he turned and left. Guan watched his retreating figure but did not dwell on it much and headed towards the Third Medicine Valley. Upon arriving, he released the 3 spirit dogs he had just bought, all of 2nd-rank demon beast lineage, not cheap. "I plan to stay in Mystic Valley recently, you take care of them," Guan instructed Elder Tian. Elder Tian nodded, and Guan turned and walked towards the transmission array platform.n/o/vel/b/in.c/om. It might have been an illusion, but as Guan stood on the transmission array platform, he noticed Elder Tian looking at him with a hint of worry. Before he could think more about it, the formation activated, and he arrived in Mystic Valley. As soon as he got to Mystic Valley, Guan sensed a familiar presence. Li. He descended from the array platform and looked towards the distance, seeing Li instructing disciples in sword practice, and even Xiao Chuan was participating. After a quick instruction, Li turned and walked towards Guan. When they met, Guan asked curiously, "How come you are here?" "Core Formation Realm Level 1. Reaching the Core Formation Realm at 45, just 5 years behind Zhang Qiang." Li chuckled and said, "I came to protect you." Hearing that a demon lord from the Heavenly Extinction sect had infiltrated the outer sect, I was worried about you. I thought I would wait until this matter is resolved before heading to the inner sect. Chapter 60, Chapter 60 Save me, Ancestor. Can you really take on that demon lord? Guan asked with a face full of doubt. Li laughed proudly, "I have formed my core, don't underestimate me. Elixir Formation Realm is just an inner sect disciple in Supreme Sect, can you really match a demon lord? You kid, I came all the way here to protect you, and you're complaining. I'm just afraid it will be like that time, remember? You rushed out to confront the demon of greed and ended up injured on the ground. Can we not mention that?" The two began to bicker, with Guan teasing Li, who didn't get angry, because he could feel that Guan meant well, fearing he would drag him down. Little did Guan know, his worry wasn't about being a burden, but rather being a drag. Brother, if the demon lord comes, I can't make my move with you by my side. Guan couldn't bring himself to express his true thoughts, and since Leah insisted on staying, he had to let it go. By the way, have you seen junior brother Lu recently? Guan asked. Leah shook his head, haven't seen him, I ran into him before, he was taken in by Demon Extermination Hall. I don't get along with the elder of the Demon Extermination Hall, so we haven't kept in touch. Speaking of which, his expression turned indifferent, showing no concern for Lu Jijia. Despite his warmth to Guan, he was actually quite cold to others. Let's go upstairs and have a good talk. I heard you've acquired another Medicine Valley recently, and it's in the inner sect. You must tell me all about it. Leah pulled Guan upstairs. Their conversation lasted until deep into the night. Guan didn't mention his identity as Panan but said that the harvest from Mystic Valley pleased the higher UPS, so they assigned him an extra Medicine Valley. With Li Suandeo being criticized because of investiture of the gods, how could Guan dare to reveal Panan's identity to Leah? What if Leah let something slip? After all, they were father and son, no matter how big the conflict, their relationship was closer than with Guan before a complete fallout. As summer gave way to autumn, the temperature still felt quite hot. 10 days had passed since Leah's arrival, and in that time, Mystic Valley had not encountered any danger. Guan even went out to manage the caves of the outer disciples, with Leah insisting on accompanying him. However, when they reached the caves, he didn't enter, fearing that he might cause trouble for Guan. Guan wanted Leah to stay in Mystic Valley to protect the disciples, but Leah didn't care about the others at all. In his words, he would only teach them swordsmanship out of respect for Guan. That evening, as Guan was picking mature herbs, Leah was meditating on a mountaintop to the west. The setting sun was just above his head, making him look like a peerless master. Suddenly, Guan noticed something. His right hand paused momentarily before he continued picking herbs. So there is a demon lord. I hope he doesn't set his sights on my Medicine Valley. Guan thought silently. The presence of the other was far beyond the Foundation establishment realm, but it did not pose a threat to his senses. The faint traces of demonic qi began to move away from Mystic Valley, which did bring him some relief. Compared to the lifespan of several decades he could gain from slaying the Demon Lord, he was more worried about revealing his strength. N/O/vel/b/in.c//om. Until nightfall. Inside the house, Guan was reading the Zaiwei Array Chronicles. He was engrossed in the section about wood attribute formations. Suddenly, his brows furrowed, and he let out a sigh. Mystic Valley hadn't attracted trouble, but Leah had caught the attention of the Demon Lord. On the mountaintop, Leah, who was meditating and absorbing energy, suddenly opened his eyes. He stood up, walked to the edge of the cliff, and looked down at the forest below the mountain he was on, about 100 feet away. A mysterious figure, like a ghostly shadow, stood beneath the trees, looking up at him from afar. Under the moonlight, the figure merged almost perfectly with the darkness, and one had to be close to notice his presence. Leah frowned. He raised his hand toward the distance, then leaped up, soaring towards the end of the night sky. The figure beneath the trees turned into a wisp of black mist and dissipated, vanishing without a trace. After 30 minutes had passed, Leah landed beside a river in the valley, originated from the mountains and about 2 zhang wide, glittering under the moonlight. No sooner had he landed when a puff of black mist appeared on the grass across from the river, which then congealed into a human figure. Leah asked, "You're not from the Heavenly Extinction Sect, and you seem to know me." The mysterious figure's hoarse voice came, "Prince Leah, inheritor of the Divinity Transformation Sword, intent from Jizhu's #1 sword cultivator, an unexpected pleasure to encounter you." Leah drew his sword from his waist, pointing it at the shadowy figure, playing ghost tricks. As soon as the words fell, rampant sword chi burst from his body, causing his black clothes to flutter intensely. 7 silver sword shadows quickly condensed around him, dazzling under the night sky. Dare to resist me in the elixir formation realm? The mysterious person let out a scornful, cold laugh. He turned into demonic qi and dissipated once more, and in almost an instant, he reappeared behind Li Yi. Li Yi's pupil shrank, and he immediately leaped up, while simultaneously swinging his sword behind him. The 7 silver sword shadows slashed toward the mysterious figure at an extremely fast speed. Boom! 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 The silver sword shadows fell one after another, stirring up clouds of dust, and the surrounding trees shook violently. In the air, before Li Yi could see whether the mysterious figure was hit, a strong gust of wind swept by his side, giving him no chance to react as he was sent flying. Li Yi plummeted into the forest like an arrow, toppling many trees along the way, and flew hundreds of feet before coming to a halt. As the dust cleared, the blood-covered Li Yi leaned against a tree trunk that was full of cracks, with branches still trembling. The mysterious figure appeared in mid-air, gazing down at Li Yi with a snort. "Kid, you dare to make a move against me just after reaching the core formation? You've got guts. Do you even know what realm I am?" Li Yi struggled to lift his head, his vision dyed red with blood. "Damn it!" Li Yi clenched his teeth, trying hard to stand up, but he couldn't. "Sigh, kid, how did you get hurt again? You're not playing with your own life, you're playing with your ancestor's life." An elderly voice rang out in Li Yi's mind, its tone filled with helplessness. The mysterious person lifted his right hand, reaching out towards Li Yi through the air. In the darkness of the night, he was surrounded by demonic qi, his true face concealed. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Before he could speak, a hand wrapped in demonic qi landed on his shoulder, startling him. Instantly, his body sprouted wooden branches, mingled with fresh blood, blooming like a blood flower in the air. The demonic qi on his body dissipated, revealing his true form, a middle-aged man in the robes of an outer sect elder, his stern and imposing face filled with incredulity as he was pierced through by the branches. With great difficulty, he turned his head, catching a glimpse of a purple-black figure standing behind him. "The demon shadow divine skill, you!" the middle-aged man said with a trembling voice. Li Yi's eyes widened in anger and he exclaimed, "Elder Chen, how could it be you?" The man known as Elder Chen didn't have time to respond as the storage bag at his waist was snatched away by the person behind him. Immediately after, the wooden branches on his body ignited with a green flame, rapidly burning him to ashes, his soul utterly eradicated along with his body. The purple-black figure stood in mid-air, his right arm still in the position of grabbing Elder Chen's shoulder. Below him, Li Yi felt an immense pressure. He knew Elder Chen was a nascent soul realm great cultivator. How could someone of such cultivation be killed so effortlessly? Void crossing realm. At least the 5th level or higher. The voice of the ancestor echoed in Li Yi's mind, heavy with gravity. The words void crossing realm made Li Yi's heart race. In the silent night within the mountain forest, Li Yi's heart was in his throat, ready for the figure to strike at any moment. Inside, he roared, "Save me, ancestor!" After several breaths, the purple-black figure vanished into thin air, causing Li Yi's body to jolt, and he quickly looked around. "He has left, he must have weighed something." The voice of the ancestor resounded in Li Yi's mind, allowing him to breathe a sigh of relief. "Stupid boy, stop worrying about Guan, hurry to the inner sect. This outer sect is getting more and more sinister, someone must be damaging the heavenly virtue, and if you stay, trouble will eventually find you." The ancestor's tone became stern, and Li Yi fell silent. Inside the Mystic Valley Pavilion, Guan gazed at the storage bag in his hand and sighed softly. "Sorry, senior brother Li, without you getting hurt, you would never leave this place." Guan felt guilty, as Li Yi had come for his sake. Although Elder Chen had clearly intended to capture Li Yi, if Li Yi had gone directly to the inner sect, the subsequent disaster would have been avoided. He decided to give Li Ye more medicinal herbs after his return. Killing Elder Chen granted him 37 years of lifespan, no more, no less. He began to inspect Elder Chen's storage bag, his divine sense scanning it several times, removing anything potentially dangerous and burning it. It wasn't until daybreak that Li Ye returned. The fellow had changed into clean robes, appearing as if he hadn't been through a battle at all. Downstairs, Guan ran into him and asked, "Senior brother Li, why does your complexion seem off?" Li Ye smiled and said, "I had a little mishap while practicing last night, it's nothing." Guan frowned, then pulled him upstairs, taking out all the elixirs he had prepared, dozens of bottles, claiming they were all stocked up for personal use. Li Ye asked in surprise, "Junior brother Gu, what is this for? You've returned from outside the valley with a pale face, you must have been in a battle last night, right?" Guan said gravely. Li Ye's expression darkened in response. Taking a deep breath, he said, "Indeed, I encountered a demon cultivator last night and got injured." Junior brother Gu, moved to Medicine Valley in the inner sect. The outer sect is no place to stay. No place to stay? I don't believe it. Guan's foundation was here, he couldn't possibly abandon it. Whoever brought trouble would die. On the surface, Guan gave a wistful smile, "Senior brother Li, the medicinal herbs we grow here in Medicine Valley are just low-rank medical herbs, the demon lord wouldn't even glance at them. In fact, we're safer without you here. You should go to the inner sect, we'll be fine. I can get help from Lu Jijia, we're still on good terms." "But..." Li Ye hesitated. Guan interrupted, "Senior brother Li, I always feel that the chaos in the outer sect isn't strongly related to the demon cultivators. The demon extermination hall has been established for many years, and we've caught countless spies from the demon path. Is it possible that someone is causing trouble under the guise of the demon path? Going to the inner sect might save the outer sect, but if you stay, how long can you protect me alone?" Li Ye's expression turned cold as he reflected on Elder Chen. After struggling for a few moments, he took a deep breath and said, "Junior brother Gu, you are right. I will head to the inner sect now." Guan's face lit up with a smile, then he forcefully stuffed all the elixirs into Li Ye's hands, moving him greatly. After a brief conversation, Guan urged him to set off, and Li Ye also felt the urgency. Because he was injured, Li Ye could only travel by sword flight. After flying out of Mystic Valley, he couldn't help looking back, murmuring, "Do you see? This is why I can't let him go. Whoever dares to harm him, I will make them regret it." Chapter 61, Chapter 61 The Secrets of the Supreme Sect, the division between righteous and demonic. After Li Ye departed, Guan discreetly placed Elder Chen's storage bag into the 8 scenic caves. That very afternoon, he made his way to the Third Medicine Valley. He wandered around, inspecting the premises, but his brow was furrowed the whole time. For a long time, Elder Tian finally took the bait. He came over, curious, and asked, "Valley Master, why are you constantly frowning?" Guan glanced at him, shook his head slightly, and said nothing. Elder Tian took a step forward, saying, "Perhaps I can't help you, but many things, once spoken, don't seem so burdensome. I can offer advice from an outsider's perspective." Upon hearing this, Guan immediately sighed and started recounting the events in the outer sect, including how Li Ye, who was in the first level of the elixir formation realm, got injured while protecting him. The reason he specifically mentioned Li Ye was to ensure that the former sect leader remembered Li Ye's contributions. Guan felt that Elder Tian would not really spend his life here, he might make a comeback one day. After he finished speaking, Elder Tian furrowed his brow. Unable to hold back, Guan complained, "The demon extermination hall in the outer sect has been capturing demon infiltrators all these years, yet despite so many years of effort, demon cultivators still manage to infiltrate the supreme sect. Can the supreme sect really claim to be the foremost sect when its disciples cannot guarantee their own safety inside? It's one thing for me to be killed, but I'm worried about my disciples. Upon saying this, he sighed again, clearly distressed and frustrated. Even he applauded his own acting skills. If acting could be included in the attribute panel, it would surely reach the pinnacle of mastery, leaving room to strive for a return to innocence. Elder Tien sighed along and said, "It does sound troublesome, but that's how the immortal cultivation world has always been. No sect really cares about servant disciples, to put it harshly, they don't even consider them as true disciples." Guan frowned this time, he was genuinely troubled. Such words coming from the former sect leader sounded particularly harsh. However, I've heard that the new sect leader is compassionate and has the support of the Hall of Elders. Perhaps he can change the current situation, at least better than the previous sect leader, Elder Tien continued, his expression unchanged as if he wasn't criticizing himself, and it was hard to tell if he was being sarcastic. Guan didn't respond but sighed and continued inspecting the herbs. Elder Tien didn't follow his pace, and he didn't bring it up again, fearing that doing too much could be counterproductive. An ancient hour later, Guan returned to Mystic Valley. He planned to stay in Mystic Valley recently, making sure to return there the same day even when visiting other places. The disciples in Mystic Valley were puzzled as to why Guan had been staying there continuously until Wuxin and Tang Yu made a trip to the outer sect and learned that demon cultivators had infiltrated recently, which made them nervous but also touched. Their master cared for them. Ever since the establishment of the Third Medicine Valley, the disciples felt that their relationship with Guan had become distant, but now, they felt closer again. Wuxin felt the greatest pressure. He began to insist on the disciples practicing spells, aiming for each to have a slight ability to protect themselves. He bought some flashy spells from the outer sect for the disciples to practice. Counter-killing demon cultivators was difficult, but if the fight was noisy enough, maybe it would draw the support of the outer sect. Guan did not stop him, thinking this might improve the unity of Mystic Valley and was an excellent opportunity to train Wuxin's leadership and organizational skills. Several days later, Yelan arrived. She came for the same reason as Li Yi, worried about Guan. In the attic, Yelan took a sword out of her storage bag and placed it on the table, saying, "Recently, there have been demon cultivators around, and their cultivation levels are not low. This sword is called the Qinghong sword. Keep it with you. Though it doesn't possess great power, it is connected to the white spirit sword I hold. If you encounter danger, I will sense it immediately and come to rescue you." Guan couldn't help but laugh and said, "Junior sister, you're only a few levels higher than me in cultivation. Don't get yourself killed." "Get yourself killed?" Yelan paused briefly, then quickly understood. She glared at Guan and huffed, "Elder brother, if we really fought, I could subdue you in one move. Don't be fooled by how I act around you, others have a completely different experience facing me. It seems my junior sister is indeed formidable." "I underestimated you," Guan admitted with a laugh. He then picked up the Qinghong sword. The scabbard was exquisitely made, adorned with a carving of a flying goose among the clouds, very poetic. He then drew the sword, with a flash of light, a slender blade appeared before him. "It's really beautiful. I'll hang it at my side from now on," Guan said with a smile. Those words brought a smile to Yelan's face. Guan noticed that although Yelan's looks were not as stunning as Ji Xiaohu or Li Xuanyu, she was quite attractive the more he looked at her. Yelan then sat down, watching Guan play with the Qinghong sword. Suddenly curious, Guan asked, "If you encounter danger, can the Qinghong sword sense the white spirit sword?" Yelan raised her eyebrows and said, "What, elder brother, you intend to protect me?" "Ha ha ha, how could that be? You know I've never been in a skirmish. Going there would only make things worse for you," Guan laughed. "You know that's good. Elder brother, if I ever face danger, don't you dare come to my rescue. Don't worry, I'm afraid of dying. Nov. L. B //JNN. Yelan giggled, I'm afraid of dying too, but I have to survive. Without me, I'm afraid you'd be bullied by others. Nonsense. Have I ever been bullied all these years? Then here's to elder brother staying safe for a lifetime. Since Leah had left, Mystic Valley hadn't faced any more dangers. When autumn arrived, Guan calculated the time and found that a batch of herbs in the third medicine valley should be ripe, so he returned there. He stepped out of the array platform, his gaze involuntarily turning towards his own loft. There was someone inside. Shenzhen. Guan did not go directly to look for Shenzhen, considering there were no secrets in that loft, the only secret being Green Hero Travelogue, which she happened to like. He walked into a garden, began picking herbs, and watching the tips continuously popping up, a smile curved the corners of his mouth, his mood extremely joyful. No matter how high his realm reached, he always felt happy seeing his lifespan increase. He wondered how much his cultivation level might ascend given his million years lifespan. He had searched through all the books in the Outer Sex book collection hall, yet had not found any records of ascension, nor did anyone know how vast this world truly was. The larger the world, the higher the realms for sure. The Supreme Sect alone possessed the great cultivators of the Void-Crossing realm, and that true inheritor who travelled abroad might have already surpassed the Void-Crossing realm, yet still wasn't invincible in this world. The path of immortal cultivation was long and arduous. Guan picked herbs while his thoughts wandered aimlessly. After he finished picking, he turned and walked towards the loft. Passing by Elder Tian spoke up, Ms. Shen came looking for you several times. Guan nodded slightly, then continued on his way. Elder Tian hesitated for a moment, then said, about the matter you mentioned, I've informed Elder Guzong. It might improve the situation for the outer sect. Upon hearing this, Guan turned back to look at him, a smile on his face. Elder Tian, you see, everyone has their own merits. You always say you're about to go into the soil, but you can still help thousands of disciples in the outer sect. Thank you. Guan lifted his hand in salute, turned his head, and left. Elder Tian seemed thoughtful, murmuring to himself, everyone has their own use. Elsewhere. Guan went upstairs, pushed open the door, and saw Shenzhen sitting at the desk, writing with fluid strokes. She was still dressed in black, her face veiled in black, her hair piled up in a bun, with two strands like willow leaves fluttering beside her cheeks, giving her eyes and brows a soft and gentle beauty. Shenzhen did not look up, she seemed to not notice Guan coming in. Guan walked over, moved to her side, trying to see what she was writing. At that moment, she stopped writing calmly and then tidied up the papers. But Guan, having already seen part of the content, appeared puzzled and hesitated to speak. Shenzhen stood up, stuffed the papers into her sleeve, walked to the side, creating some distance between them, and smiled, I looked for you several times, and you were never here. Is the outer sex medicine valley that dear to you? Guan helplessly said, lately the outer sect isn't safe, and I couldn't take all my disciples with me, so I had to stay there. After all, my cultivation level is higher than theirs. The reason he disclosed this was to pass the message upwards through her. The more people talked about it, the more power and hope they might gather. With your current achievements, not to mention entering the inner sect, going to the main city of the sect in the supreme sect isn't difficult either. Why not write well instead of bothering with these trifles? Shenzhen asked curiously. Guan answered, you are the holy daughter of the Daoshan sect, possessing resources that ordinary people can't even think of. Why not focus on your cultivation instead of indulging in music, chess, and painting? Shenzhen fell silent. Guan then began to tidy up the desk. After a while, Shenzhen said with emotion, no wonder you write about the Supreme Immortal Venerable. Indeed, only you understand me in this world. If you were to die, I'd have neither books to read nor a confidant. No way, I can't let you die. I'll tell you a secret. She raised her hand, waved her sleeve, closed the room door, and from her sleeve flew out several talisman papers, which she adhered to the doors and windows. Guan looked at her curiously. What secret could save his life? Inside the Supreme Sect, some people are trying to cultivate demon skill to break through to higher cultivation levels to prepare for the upcoming great demon calamity. But whether this skill is feasible remains uncertain, so your outer city is being used as a test. This matter cannot be overt, as it would damage the reputation of a reputable sect, so they disguise it under the guise of capturing demon cultivators, Shen Zhen said calmly, her gaze becoming unfathomably indifferent. Guan frowned. How do you know this? Shen Zhen answered, because the Daoshan sect is also trying this, sacrificing some lower-level disciples in exchange for the prolonged existence of the sect, a feat that will be remembered through the ages. Upon hearing this, Guan felt extremely uncomfortable. What kind of demon skill requires the sacrifice of disciples? Guan pressed on. In this life, cultivating towards immortality is said to defy the heavens, yet the higher the realm, the more one can feel the heavenly destiny. This demon skill allows those great cultivators who cannot break through any further to defy their heavenly destiny. All in all, you should give up the medicine valley out there, staying longer will do you no good. Because you are Panan, they are afraid you'll write indiscriminately, so they dare not tell you. Just don't say it was me who told you. Shen Zhen's words left Guan silent. The distinction between the righteous path and the demon path seemed absurd at that moment. Shen Zhen's eyes curved into a smile. By the way, you just read my book, how did you feel about the content? Upon hearing this, Guan's expression became odd again. He earnestly said, actually, Green Hero Travelogue also has its flaws, some things are not necessary to learn. Why can't they be learned? That represents the most genuine clashes, the truest reflection of human emotions. Do you have to write it? Yes. Then, can the protagonist not be called Guan? Chapter 62, Chapter 62, Preparing for a Breakthrough, Immortal Slaying Sword Array. What's there to fear? There are more people named Guan in the world than just you. Unlike you, I can't just create characters at will, I need to acknowledge someone before I can write their story. From my perspective, you fit the role of the male protagonist the best. According to what I know, your only flaw is that your cultivation level is low. Shen Zhen spoke earnestly, causing Guan's face to twitch. Was this a compliment? Why did it sound more like a personal attack? If I were to reveal my cultivation level, even your father might not be able to measure up. Guan continued to persuade, but Shen Zhen stubbornly refused to change his name. In the end, Shen Zhen suggested exchanging a secret manual for his name, and Guan had no choice but to agree. After Shen Zhen left, Guan stayed in the attic, browsing through the secret manual she had given him. Mystic Sound Art. This was a musical spell that could damage one's internal organs and bewilder an enemy's senses, quite comprehensive indeed. Guan had been lacking in this type of spell and could further his study in the future. After reading through the mystic sound art once, he tossed it into his storage bag and got up to leave. A month later, Guan arrived at the outer city. He first went to the elixir hall to submit this year's harvest. Elder Zhu Qingluo met him. Guan noticed that Zhu Qingluo looked fatigued, and there was a trace of demonic qi surging within him, just like Lu Jijia. Elder Zhu, you look unwell, what happened? Guan asked. He wasn't sure how the outer sect's demon skills were cultivated. Some people had gone missing, but on this visit to the outer city, he noticed a hidden trace of demonic qi in many disciples, almost all of whom belonged to various factions and were not ordinary disciples. Was it collusion or a trap? He couldn't judge, and Shen Zhen hadn't elaborated. Elder Zhu Qingluo said with a smile, the practice is strenuous, but no worries. Don't you have a medicine valley in the inner sect? You better move there quickly, don't stay in the outer sect anymore. Recently, demon cultivators have been rampant, and it's too dangerous out here. Guan tentatively asked, a lot of people have told me that it's very dangerous in the outer sect now. If it's so dangerous, why doesn't the leadership send more people to wipe out the demons? And what is the area under construction in the city? It is almost occupying 1/4 of the city area. Upon arriving in the outer city, he had seen many disciples laying stones at the city center. Those stones were not mortal stones, each could contain spiritual energy. No matter how he looked at it, it appeared just like a gigantic sacrificial platform was being set up. Elder Zhu Qinglu replied nonchalantly, the higher UPS have their considerations which we cannot speculate. What we can do is try to protect ourselves. As for the thing being constructed in the city, it's an array platform that will provide protection for the outer sect in the future. Seeing his demeanor, Guan felt that he was not a good person. He likely knew the inside story and had benefited from it. Guan did not continue to inquire and, after exchanging a few pleasantries, left. Stepping out of the elixir hall, Guan stood on the street and looked distantly at the array platform under construction. Dark clouds filled the sky. The once thriving, sunny outer city seemed so gloomy, as if it belonged to the demon path. Guan stood still, watching for quite some time before finally turning to leave. The autumn breeze swept through the street, stirring his garments and slightly shaking the Qinghong sword at his waist, its scabbard flashing with a cold light. After leaving the outer city, Guan went to tend to the caves. When he arrived at Li Xuanyu's cave, he found her inside. From now on, you don't need to come here. I have to move to the inner sect. Here is your compensation, Li Xuanyu said as she sat at the table, waving her right hand and piling spirit stones on the table. Guan immediately bowed and then went to collect the spirit stones into his storage bag. He didn't say much and turned to leave. Li Xuanyu watched his leaving figure and asked indifferently, I heard your leg technique is very powerful. Guan stopped, turned to look at her, and said, did Brother Liya tell you that? My leg technique is no match for his. Recently, Liya had stayed in Mystic Valley, watching Tang Yu practice the residual wind leg, and had learned about the time Guan had used the residual wind leg to subdue Meng Lang. He hadn't expected him to tell Li Xuanyu so quickly. I just asked casually. Li Xuanyu's face remained calm as she spoke. She paused and then said, I look forward to the day you join the inner sect. Then you and I can compete. Guan replied, perplexed and helpless, how can I compete with you, senior sister? I could never catch up to you. Go back now. Li Xuanyu didn't continue his line of conversation but instead gave him the order to leave. Guan could only depart. After leaving her cave, Guan didn't feel much psychological burden. As long as he denied everything, what could Li Xuanyu do about it? Late at night, Guan walked through the mountain forest. In the afternoon, he had already told Wuxin that he needed to go out and wouldn't return until tomorrow. The reason he had mentioned it in advance was that he was preparing for a breakthrough. Once he made a breakthrough, it would undoubtedly cause a significant disturbance. If the disciples were looking for him then, and found he wasn't in his room, they might get suspicious. Ever since his visit to the outer city, Guan had sensed a strong atmosphere of danger. The rulers practiced demon skills, and the nobles' children fled the outer sect. All these signs made him anxious. Although the Void Crossing Realm, level 9, was strong, the Supreme Sect had its share of those from the Void Crossing Realm. Thus, after several days of struggle, Guan decided to break through to a higher major realm first. Ultimately, delaying the unlocking of the million-year lifespan feature by 1 year wouldn't be too bad. This time, he took a long detour, traveling 300 miles by night, and stopped in a dense forest. He stopped because he sensed 2 nascent soul auras, one of which he had felt before. Zhou Yujian, the maniac swordsman of Kanghe Lake, who had previously gained sword enlightenment near Mystic Valley, was injured by Guan in the guise of the flying leaf sword Immortal. Since then, Guan had only seen him at the Ji family estate. Guan had suppressed his aura to the lowest level, fearing no detection by anyone in the nascent soul realm. Miles away, above the forest, Zhou Yujian, clad in blue robes, hovered in the air, with 5 precious swords floating beside him, circling around his body, epitomizing the demeanor of a sword cultivator. Facing him was a man in a wide black robe, burly in stature, wielding a long staff, with thick eyebrows and piercing eyes, and a square and imposing face. His black robe fluttered intensely, and his overwhelming domineering presence caused the trees below to tilt to the sides. Zhou Yujian, you should have been content to stay in the inner sect and study, so why obstruct me? The man in the black robe asked coldly. N/O/vel/b/jn.c//om. Zhou Yujian, expressionless, replied, Chen Suanjin, as a great elder of the outer sect, you practice demon skill, harming your fellow disciples. It's not me who obstructs you, it's your abundance of injustice that compels me to act on behalf of the heavens to apprehend you. Hearing this, Chen Suanjin burst into derisive laughter. Do you really not know whom I'm working for? Chen Suanjin snorted coldly, then planted his staff into the ground. A burst of purple light emerged from the base of the staff, forming purple runes and creating a complex and mysterious formation with a diameter of over 100 meters. Just as the edge of the formation nearly touched Zhou Yujian, it was blocked by an invisible sword intent. From above, it looked as though a piece was missing from the edge of the purple light formation. Of course I know. I cannot take on him, but I can handle you. Killing you means that even if your successor as great elder of the outer sect continues to commit wrongs, I can protect the outer disciples for a while. Zhou Yujian said expressionlessly, as the 5 precious swords around him unsheathed simultaneously, their sword light illuminating the night sky. You think you can kill me? Chen Suanjin reacted as if he had heard a huge joke, his face twisted ferociously as his aura suddenly exploded, and a fierce wind arose, shaking the trees in the surrounding 10 miles severely. Zhou Yujian's expression changed slightly, and he involuntarily squinted. You at Nascent Soul Realm Level 1 think you can kill me at Nascent Soul Realm Level 9? Zhou Yujian, do you think because you have your master as a backup, I wouldn't dare kill you? Since you've chosen the path of power, refusing to remain ordinary, you are fundamentally mistaken. Saving some mediocre outer disciples as opposed to saving the entire Taikang dynasty weigh what's heavier and what's lighter. If you don't understand, then you've lived in vain. Chen Suanjin stood proudly, his domineering aura compressing Zhou Yujian's sword shadows, causing his 5 precious swords to tremble. I'll give you one last chance, turn back now and it's still not too late. Either go back to your investiture of the gods or die. Chen Suanjin's staff emitted rolling demonic qi, surprisingly condensing into a massive black dragon that coiled around him. Zhou Yujian took a deep breath and said, Since you mentioned the investiture of the gods, do you know of the Immortal Slaying Sword Array? Immortal Slaying Sword Array. Chen Suanjin's expression drastically changed, revealing a look of astonishment. Guan, who was secretly keeping an eye on them from a distance, was also surprised. 1 breath becomes 3 pure ones, the marvelous technique penetrates Mount Sumeru. Zhou Yujian muttered, his surrounding precious swords trembling fiercely, quickly dispersing and forming an array, its killing intent soaring into the heavens. Guan, standing under a tree, was stunned. Could studying really reveal Daoist sorcery? Was he a genius? Chen Suanjin was also frightened and immediately cast a spell to attack. A great battle erupted instantly. The heavens shook and the earth moved, and the forests toppled. Guan stood under the tree, unflinchingly, his pupils shining with sword qi, closely watching Zhou Yujian's figure. After 10 breaths, the battle ended. Guan sighed with relief. That scared me. Guan truly thought Zhou Yujian had discerned the immortal slaying sword array from the investiture of the gods. If that were so, wouldn't it mean that the investiture of the gods was real? What a world that would be! The swordsmanship Zhou Yujian used was self-created, truly powerful enough to compete with a great cultivator at nascent soul realm level 9, but it did not last for long. The night sky cleared, the mountains and forests turned to wasteland, and dust flew into the air. Chen Suanjin hovered in the air, gasping heavily, his face full of lingering fears. His eyes looked down at the rolling dust below. He could feel that Zhou Yujian was not yet dead, his brows furrowed in consternation. Although he wanted to kill Zhou Yujian, reason told him that doing so might cause trouble. Even though he was at the nascent soul realm, within the supreme sect, he was still just a pawn. Just then, a sound of something cleaving the air came, startling Chen Suanjin. He glanced up abruptly, his pupils dilating. A cold light sped from the horizon, scattering the dust and stirring up countless leaves as it passed, like a chilling sword slicing through the ages. Lying in the rubble, Zhou Yujian sensed something and instinctively opened his eyes. The dust above suddenly dispersed, the night sky reflecting in his pupils, where amidst the darkness, a bright light shined mesmerizingly. It's him! Zhou Yujian's eyes widened as he saw the swirl of sword qi around the leaves piercing Chen Suanjin's chest, blood splattering the night sky. In that moment, Zhou Yujian finally understood. The flying leaf sword Immortal had not intended to harm him back then, but to guide him, otherwise, how could he have survived? Now, the flying leaf sword Immortal's intervention to save him both surprised and shamed him. Just who was this senior? Chapter 63, Chapter 63, Breakthrough to the Unification Realm. After Chen Suanjin was pierced through the chest by a leaf swirling with sword qi, the spiritual power inside his body dispersed, and his eyes widened in fear, as his courage nearly shattered. He immediately escaped by ejecting his nascent soul and fled toward the horizon. In the trembling forest, Guan calmly watched Chen Suanjin flee. He intentionally did not kill Chen Suanjin. Killing him would only yield 20 to 30 years of lifespan. It was better to let him return, to intimidate the person pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Even if he killed Chen Suanjin now, someone else would take his place, addressing the symptom but not the root cause. If intimidation failed to work, and his mystic valley was threatened, then Guan would be forced to govern his domain personally. Under the night sky, Guan's gaze was so cold. He turned and left, quickly vanishing into the forest. Amidst the ruins, Zhou Yujian struggled for a long time before he managed to stand up. Covered in blood and dirt, he looked incredibly disheveled. He called out loudly for his seniors, but no one responded to him. He had no choice but to sit cross-legged and start cultivating energy to heal on the spot. Elsewhere, Guan moved quickly, spanning 1,000 miles before he finally stopped. He was still hidden in the woodland. Pulling up his clothing hem, he sat down in front of a tree and then called up his attribute panel. Looking at his lifespan of over 100,000 years, he took a deep breath. Void crossing realms tribulation, who knows how many times it would fail. But he had made up his mind, no matter how many times he failed, he would break through. Otherwise, he felt no sense of security. First, let's invest 10,000 years of lifespan. You have invested 10,000 years of lifespan into your cultivation level for evolutionary practice. You practiced energy absorption for 100 years, you with the great accomplishment of Yangwood primordial skill forcefully broke through to the unification realm, starting tribulation crossing, and you did not survive the trial of the 5 elements divine thunder, tribulation failed. You practiced energy absorption for 400 years, you with the great accomplishment of Yangwood primordial skill forcefully broke through to the unification realm, starting tribulation crossing, and you did not survive the trial of the 5 elements divine thunder, tribulation failed. Continuous failures began. Every 300 years, a tribulation crossing would be attempted. It's no wonder the Supreme Sect practiced demon skills to break through heavenly destiny. This realm is indeed hard to withstand. After 10 consecutive failures, Guan's heart began to quiver. Is it really this hard? He had practiced the infinite traceless mystic heaven step, the great yin-yang transformation, and mastered 2 divine skills. Were tribulation crossings still this difficult? Guan noticed that most of his tribulations related to the 5 elements. Could it be that the tribulations he faced were much more difficult than those faced by others? After core formation, Liu once said that tribulations also varied in type. Different cultivators may face different tribulations, primarily related to one's talent and cultivation technique. Guan's eyes grew sharp. No matter how hard, he would succeed. Heaven does not let down those who persevere. You practiced energy absorption for 5,400 years, you with the